everybody, I am your androgynous android game show host from the future, Nathan Blades, and welcome to the Neoncaster Twitch channel. I hope you are all doing fantastically today. I hope you are all nourished. I hope you're all well rested. Thank you very much for the follow, Stuff by Bez. Which happened in the loading screen, but I hope you're doing well too. I hope you've managed to recover from UK Games Expo, because that is what we are here to go and discuss over the next couple of hours. No, it's no problem at all. I appreciate the follow. Thank you for connecting. I appreciate you. But yes, I am very, very excited for our stream today. For we are going over the fantastic convention that happened not a week ago, called the UK Games Expo. Set in the Birmingham NEC Convention Centre. It is the largest tabletop gaming convention in the UK, covering the gamut of board games, tabletop RPGs, collectible and competitive card games, and miniature war games, and more, featuring a wide variety of different creators across that industry and hobby. I do enjoy going every year. I was actually going to go for the entire weekend this year, but unfortunately they had some issues about their kind of like COVID passport policy. They were like, oh no, this isn't, we're not going to be too deep about this. And like, okay, I probably shouldn't stay the entire weekend if I am also going to have to go physically to work and things like that. But I'm fine, thankfully. You know, I was wearing a mask the entire time. I checked my stats afterwards and I'm still good. So we still breathe and pipe people. But otherwise, I had a really, really good time. There were lots of people there that I didn't see, or I hadn't seen for like 2 years. Or more. So it was a really joy to be able to connect with some creators that I normally see a little bit more regularly, and to go and meet some new faces. Normally, my experience with UKGE, I go as a tabletop RPG person. That is my primary wheelhouse. I am a tabletop RPG creator and streamer after all. But wow, that is a very loud car outside. But in the last 2 years, my boyfriend has gotten me into miniature games, tabletop miniature games. And I'm like, oh no, now I'm going to be going to this convention, which has a really large range of people. You can't hear the car? Perfect, love that. I'll be going to a convention where there's going to be lots of people selling really interesting miniatures, and I'm going to want to go and buy them all and then paint them on stream. So I have, just to the side over here, a haul of the stuff that I bought. It's across the gamut of a handful of different things. And some of the stuff that was very graciously given to me by some of the people that I spoke to today. We're going to be seeing all of those, and we're also going to be going and seeing the interviews that we have done. So let's go over to the hand cam. Yes, we have glittery red nail polish today for the hand cam. So what we're going to do is that we're going to go through all the interviews like first, and then talking about what they were what they had going on, and if I bought anything from them or if they gave me anything, showing them on camera. And then we're going to go over the rest of the other bits and pieces that I obtained that weren't specifically tied to any of the people that I spoke to. But it was really, really good. I got to speak to a whole bunch of new people as well, which is really fun. Let's go and summon that from the ether. I do have that handy. Technology is a curse. Yes, first. We have Adventuring with Pride, a whole bunch of hard book anthologies of scenarios and character class informations for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition with the compatibility with D&D, and all focused on LGBTQIA+ representation. Right, let's go get the audio going. Woohoo.
Well, I'm Jack Dixon. I am the creator and author of Adventuring with Pride, which is a queer Dungeons & Dragons supplement written in 5e, which helps fill the gap which I think there's lacking in the tabletop space of like queer representation, especially in like official D&D products. This has queer stories, queer characters, and you know, it's a very special part of my life, because to me D&D I grew up with, and as a queer kid it was a way I could express myself, but I could only express myself like in my own homebrew worlds. I couldn't like picking up like a D&D, like just a traditional book. You wouldn't find it, you know, it's always the traditional damsel in distress type of story, not so much where like a campy queer kid didn't really fit into my sort of mold of what I wanted to be.
Sure.
So at the start of the pandemic, just started writing, and it turned into 2 books and now a 3rd book on Kickstarter right now, with half the proceeds of the hardbacks going to Stonewall.
See, yeah.
You know, with Stonewall is a very important charity, and it's helped open up lots of youth centres. So I always want to give back to the community. And yeah, that's it.
So are the books like campaigns, or are they like?
So the books contain 4. So each book contains 4 one-shots, which can be played separately as one-shots can, or they got like you can stream together into one big campaign.
They have a through line.
Yes.
Between them,
So you know they're all connected, but you don't have to play them in order. We also have subclasses and stuff. For example, in the first book, we had drag queen, bards, social media warlocks, barista wizards. Because
social media
to me,
warlocks
you know,
cracks me
social
up.
media and coffee is just gay culture.
Yeah.
But I think that just more sums up me as a person. And we come with like magical items and stuff, and pre-made characters. So you can just like pick and drop and play, even if you're a DM, and you can just use the play characters as just NPCs. And just like, look, here is a fun, fully fleshed out drag queen barbarian for you to use, or something like that.
Nice. If there were any worlds in the realms of like tabletop RPGs that you'd like to expand to outside of D&D, what other kind of realms would you explore?
Oh, that is a tough one. So outside of D&D, I really love... So I'm a big horror fan, and I've always wanted to I love campy slasher, so I'd love to kind of move something into like maybe like some sort of like sleepaway camp style slasher tabletop, and I've been trying to find a system which would suit that. Co's pretty good for that. They do horror pretty well, but yeah, I'd like to go into more of that, because that's the other side of me. It's D&D and then watching cheesy 80s slasher horror movies.
Nice. And if people want to find you and your work, where can they go and find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Jackophobia, or on Twitter for the book. You can find it at Adventure with Pride.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Jack
Oh
Dixon.
no! Please
I am
don't
the creator and
replay.
author of
Stop.
Adventure with Pride.
Stop. Shush. There we go. You thought I'd had all the technical stuff down, and I didn't. But yeah. It was actually really a delight. I am not a Dungeons and Dragons player really much at all. I've experience with 5th edition. I played a in real life, not streamed, campaign some years ago when I initially moved to Manchester. And it eventually resolved that the game itself wasn't for me. But I do appreciate that because it is such a monolith of a game that it's inspired so many people to create their own content and make their way to feel seen within the, otherwise I would say quite corporate game. So it's really, really impressive that Jack here has managed to not just produce one kind of like supplementary material, but like 3, and have them be so popular at an event. I think is really, really cool. I had to ask what other games he might be interested in playing and exploring, because I would actually really love to see this kind of content be produced across a wider variety of systems. I think a lot of systems now give more room and scope to queer content and narratives within it. Maybe just because when you're talking about like kind of the indie tabletop scene and the like queer nerd scene, it's basically just a circle. So we're all very invested in trying to find our ways to be represented in the games that we play on a daily basis, weekly basis. But no, it was really nice speaking to him, and I'm glad that these have been doing so well, and that there's the 3rd game in Kickstarter. For all of these, I've put their URL where you can go to like their main website if they have one, and their Twitter if they have one, So you can go and check them out directly. I really would appreciate you to go and find all these people and give them support. Also, I did listen to this back in my ears before I went live, but just to check against y'all, is the audio okay? Like, is the level of that kind of like okay with everything? Was that all possible? It was really interesting as a... I used to do a lot of interviewing. I used to do a podcast where I interviewed queer creators across lots of different art forms about their passion projects and why they enjoy art or why they explore art the way that they do, which I loved, and they loved me for doing it, of course. But there's been a really long time since I last interviewed somebody, and it's been a really, really long time since I last interviewed people like in the field, like at a convention where there is no way really to do much in the way of noise suppression. I've tried to do my best in terms of like cleanup for this, so hopefully everybody is like pretty clean and clear, and you're gonna get some background noise. I can't clear all that up, or they will just sound tinny and airy. It was okay, slightly louder for the interviews because of the background noise. I can bump up the background noise just a hair. No, let's not bump up the background noise. Let's bump up the game volume, just the interview volume, and I can turn that down in my ears a little bit. And also, hi, Come and Go Tavern. Hope you're doing well. You're in good time. You're in good time. That was just the first interview. We'll move on to the next one. Rowan, Rook, and Deckard. I tried my best to go and get photos of all the booths. Did I remember to get photos of all the booths while I was here? I absolutely fucking didn't. And in those cases, I definitely managed to go and find people taking pictures of their own booths on Twitter and the like. So thank you, Grant, for remembering to take a photo of the booth, even if it is just highlighting the fact that you sold out of all your stuff, which is rad. So great that it's been really, really successful for you. But with all that out of the way, it's why you don't see Grant in this picture, because Grant's taking the picture in it. Anyway, let's go get the Rowan, Rook, and Deckard interview up.
I'm Grant Howitt. Hello. I publish games with Rowan, Rook, and Deckard, and I am here at UKGE selling my games. It's the first time that we've exhibited as a publisher, which is very exciting. We've only ever been part of a collective before, so it's our first time out. It was supposed to be 2020, but some stuff happened.
No, understandable.
A couple of administrative hiccups, but we're here now, and it's great. We're selling loads of Heart and Spire, and it's great to be able to share my games with people and be able to face them directly and say, "Hey, here's why this game is cool," and they're like, "Here's £35," and that's just a really nice thing to happen.
To happen repeatedly. You need to get more books in, right?
Yes, we're currently having some books. Basically, we're currently having them couriered up from London. Although Maz Hamilton, our head of business, basically is accompanying them, and we got 10 extra boxes of books are going to arrive. So this is Saturday morning. We're having this conversation. In about an hour and a half, 10 boxes of books are going to arrive. We're not sure where or how we get them back, but we're very excited.
And I think those all sold out again,
awesome.
by the way.
I actually met you for the first time at one of these.
Yes, you handed me a one-page game.
Yeah.
And I was instantly charmed.
I was like, I made a game inspired by the one page you did called Hack the Planet. I thought it was really good. Will you be my friend?
Yes, I'll be a friend. You're so tall. You make me feel normal-sized.
Oh yeah. No, it's I think one of the reasons why I quite like this event is the ability to meet other designers and be able to share ideas and stuff,
and be able to sort of complain a bit about how things are going.
Talk shop.
Yes, to talk shop, certainly, and talk shit. I mean, I presume you have an explicit podcast tag. Yeah.
And you actually, as a publisher, have something in Kickstarter going on.
Yes, we have the Die RPG going on right now. It is so it's written by Kieran Gillen. It is
of Wicked and Divine fame.
Yes, Wicked and Phonogram, and just like a series of incredibly good comics. He wrote the game, so it's about the way I'm pitching it is it's like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the 80s, where those kids got sucked into a magical fantasy kingdom. But what if that was really traumatic for everyone involved? And what if the magical fantasy kingdom was less pleasant than Saturday morning TV? Kieran wrote it, and then we've been editing it and polishing it and tightening it up. We've got it's currently in layout, which is very exciting. We've got Stephanie Hans to do more art. It is an absolute over-the-top, gorgeous, beautiful thing. It's very slick. It's very cathartic to play through. And one thing we've been very careful about that is we got in Kiana Shaw and Lauren Bryant Monk, who did the safety toolkit. We've got them in to write us special rules and special content to make sure that the game's as safe to play as possible, which is really cool. To get basically the security experts of the RPG world get in and okay, we're going to reduce bleed. Let's dance. So I'm really happy about that, and it's cracking.
Yeah, it's such a great. It has such a wide range of talents in their specific kind of fields.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Work together on such a big project. My favorite class is, I think it's called the Dictator, the Emotion Bard.
Yeah. So it's what if bards were fucking petrifying?
Yeah.
And so it's the evolution of charm person.
Taken to a logical, terrifying
in that you
extreme.
pick one person and you just make them feel an emotion, and they do what you want. And the class doesn't have anything else. And if you can hit a dictator, they go down. But if they ask you not to hit them, you can't.
You cannot say no.
So it's playing it's one class based around the idea of actually charm person is fucked. Can we talk about that? And so that's really interesting. And there's the emotion knight who's a paladin devoted to a single emotion, and there's an interesting synergy with the dictator.
Yes, because one can feel the other.
The dictator can make you feel magical levels of emotion, to the point where you can kick down a building as an emotion. We've got the Neo, who's a cyberpunk at a fantasy kingdom, who has to get mysterious gold to plug directly into their neck to power their cyberpunk upgrades. We've got the Fool, who isn't interested in this D&D bullshit and therefore can't die. And then we have the Godbinder, who is what if a cleric was a warlock. So you just make direct deals with the gods and you accrue debt and hope they don't kill you.
And if people want to go and find you and your work and the Kickstarter and all the other fantastic things you do, where can they find it?
Easiest way to do it is to go to Twitter. It's Twitter at GSHOWITT or GShowit. And that will get you. I shout about stuff all the time on there, so I'm often tweeting about Die, but also I try to put out one page game a month. I also there's various ongoing stuff, and if you're interested in just some moody selfies, some pictures of models I've made, and some leftist jokes, you'll love it.
Hey, fantastic! Thank you very much. Man. You'd think that when people are walking by you and you can see that somebody's holding a recording device to somebody else, that they'd be like, oh man, they're recording. I probably shouldn't be directly talking because it will probably be picked up on my... Do they give a fuck? They do not. They do not at all. And it's very funny to me. Grant is such a treasure. He is probably one of my favorite people in tabletop RPGs. And that story I told in that recording, true, by the way. I went to my first UK Games Expo 2017, I want to say, maybe 2018. And I was like, oh, I've started making tabletop RPGs myself. That one we managed to kind of sneak into the smoking area for that one. So we weren't getting hardcore background noise. Some of these I had to do a lot of processing on, and we all sound like we're talking inside tin cans, and I'm sorry, it is the only way I could get it clean. But around 2017, 2018, I had made my first tabletop RPG and was kind of oh, Grant, who inspired the mechanics of this, is going to be there. So it would be a really good way to make a new friend in the space and then give him the game. And I was so nervous. These days, I'm not so much of a nervous person. I used to be. I really, really used to be a very, very nervous person. And the idea of kind of meeting new people and especially new performers terrified me. I still don't necessarily like meeting new people, I must be honest with you. Also, hi Tom, good afternoon. But I was kind of here, I made this. I think you might think it's cool. Have a good day. We got talking after that. We've appeared at other conventions in the same space before as well, a Thought Bubble in 2019. And as a result, I've actually collaborated and done some work for Grant Howard on a couple of occasions. You can see that second banner in that photo, the one that says Shadow Operations. That is like a collection of scenarios / playsets written by guest tabletop RPG authors, and I'm in there. One of my a story written by me is in there called The Last Train, where they jump, where your players go into a magical labyrinth London Underground system and try and find the last running train that has a bunch of cultists on it and is possibly being powered by a demon. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to go and check out the wide variety of Rowan, Rick, and Deckard's publishing, a lot of them written by Grant Howard, but a handful of them written by other people, please do go to rowanrickanddeckard.com. That should be rowanrickanddeckard.com. Whoops, I'm sorry. But you were able to find that, or you can go to @RowanRickDeckard on Twitter, and you'll be able to go and find his stuff there. Right, moving on. Cobblepath Games, yes.
I am Steph, I'm the lead writer for Cobblepath Games. We are a team of 2, and our whole shtick is about thematic games. So we like coming up with a theme and then sticking to that and making mechanics that work to the theme and speak to that, rather than just kind of taking any mechanics and trying to apply them to anything. We're trying to make it all really fit in and feel cohesive. And,
but the mechanics reflect the flavour. I get you. I think that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Jack, I'm the lead game designer, and to add about what Cobblepath is, our flagship title is Locust, which is a personal horror game. It's like a full-size system. We've done a couple of small zine systems, but it was a game that we started out making because we wanted something that would scare us, and that's kind of where the thematic grounding for the company came from, was we made that because there was a type of horror that we didn't really know much of in space. So we made it, and we're pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, fantastic. And it seems that you've sold out of one of your games today.
So Goblins, Stacks of Goblins is one of our zine games. It's a sort of one-shot or two-shot if you make that happen. Comedy game about being one goblin in a stack of goblins with your friends. So you're all playing one single stack, pretending to be a person, a very normal, obviously human person. The Goblin King has told you that they want something from the people places, but you weren't really listening because you're a goblin, so you all have to kind of guess what you individually think it was, and then try and make that work. And it's all about being very silly. It's all very kind of, you roll the dice to find out stuff about what happens. Whoever's on the bottom of the stack is kind of like the DM. Whoever's on top makes decisions, and whoever's in the middle can help or hinder, but you will be swapping around a lot. So it's kind of DM-less in the sense that whoever's on the bottom will change constantly. So everyone gets a chance to tell the story, and it can go off in wildly different directions when different people take control.
But like a slapstick comedy and personal horror, like the
very different
two polar
things.
opposites.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we made the horror game that was in us, and then it was like, well, we don't need to do horror anymore. I mean, we're adding to Locust, we're writing stories and extra content for it, but that's our horror game. So more horror games aren't really something we're likely to be doing too much.
Turns out what we have in us are goblins. That's what's in us after the horror.
Absolutely. And are there any kind of like upcoming projects and stuff you're working on?
So we've got a sci-fi guide for Locust coming out in July. So how to kind of adapt the thematics to fit that sci-fi setting of kind of transhumanism and all the...
Well, it covers cyberpunk, sort of like the kind of like alien style, industrial punk, dilapidated futures, covers sort of Blade Runner-y style stuff. Basically any sci-fi. The one thing it doesn't really have in that guide is particular rules changes, which is just because the Locust system doesn't need to change rules to do sci-fi.
Sure, gotcha.
It's just guidance on how to twist and change the thematics and certain elements of the system that are the more kind of like role-play elements of the system to fit sci-fi. And also the other big thing is Coffee Chaos.
Oh yeah. So Coffee and Chaos is another silly thing we're doing. It's a comedy one-shot game about running a cafe or a tavern or a cocktail bar or a space bar, whatever you like, some kind of establishment with your mates or with your enemies, if that's how you're playing it. And it's a DM-less storytelling game where every round things go more and more wrong and escalate and build on each other, and you've got limited resources to deal with everything that's going wrong. So it's a little bit of resource management and a lot of storytelling and hopefully giggles, because the coffee bar might explode and then the toilets leak and then the delivery turns up and a celebrity turns up and things just keep building and
Big
going.
sitcom energy. Yeah. Nice.
And you can play it with your existing characters. So if you have a D&D group and you want to take your druid to be a waiter in this tavern, by all means, they have all their powers. Why not be a bear to deliver this espresso? Or your cyberpunk characters, and the DM can join in as one of the players and maybe play an NPC or a villain, also head in this tavern with them.
Nice.
Yeah,
And
it's currently funding on GameFound. Launched a few days ago. We're over a third of the way now. There's lots of goodies on the GameFound. You can get mugs, you can get stickers, like a reusable board for the cafe that's like a clean whiteboard with the cafe sheet printed on it and stuff. So, and the game is going to be printed on a menu with a table talker for the various situations that you can find out what happens, basically. So.
And if people want to go find out more about the GameFound crowdfunding or all the other bits and pieces, where can they go?
So they can go to cobblepathgames.co.uk for our website. And on GameFound, we're projects/cobblepathgames/coffee-chaos.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, you two. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Coffee and Chaos sounds really, really interesting. I really like. I'm a big fan of tabletop RPGs that exist as in mid-campaign tasters. That can work to kind of like break up a larger kind of like play arc with a game that lets you use the same world or the same characters to kind of explore a different angle of things as a breather. So Coffee and Chaos does sound like a really, really fun way to go and do that. These two are really, really interesting to speak to, and I think the games that they were demoing today are really, really good example of what is in the zeitgeist, what is a la mode, what is popular within indie tabletop RPG design at the moment. What I would describe as like slapstick animal tabletop RPGs. What would be like very heavily typified with Honey Heist by Grant Howitt, who we've heard from recently, where it's you're a bunch of bears doing like Ocean's 11 things, and part of the fact that you are a slightly cute animal and doing intentionally silly slapstick things is kind of like part and parcel of the process. Has been really, really popular. In fact, one of the other tables we're going to be speaking to in the later interview has a game with a very similar energy, and it clearly works because a stack of goblins, as you can see in that photo on the left hand side, has totally sold out. They sold out of all of their copies, and this was on Saturday, and I got to them in the morning, like before midday, probably about 10, maybe about 11 or 12 in the day, and they'd sold out. So it's really, really popular as like a type, and I think it's a really good way. Yeah, I don't know how many they had. I didn't ask, but you get. I think it's a really approachable method to tabletop RPGs. I think a wide number of people who are interested in that as a game form, but are intimidated by what might theoretically be the seriousness of major tabletop RPGs, and maybe a little intimidated, and these feel a bit more approachable. Plus, being a goblin/gremlin on TikTok and Tumblr and so on is also very, very popular. So I think it kind of hits on that kind of note. For me, not my personal jam. I struggle with performing that type of humor at all. I can never really be really slapstick in that kind of way. But I'm really glad that there are so many people who are exploring this kind of genre of tabletop RPGs, and it's being so successful. Locus, on the other hand, seems really, really exciting to me. That in kind of talking with them further about it, it's kind of like really heavily inspired by the likes of like Silent Hill, what would be described as personal horror. Part of the mechanic of it, as I understand, is building the characters, and then you work out what the characters are afraid of, and then the GM uses those specifically to kind of build what the encounters and threats are. So really specifically trying to get to the heart of what gets under the skin of those sharks. Yes, Tom. Yeah, that's the a delightful intro when we were playing 3.5 way back when. We were doing kind of like an anime horror campaign in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And one of the arcs was kind of going to like a haunted, abandoned village, and it has a whole bunch of like hallucinations to show you what you're afraid of, and it's doing that. And Ricky, my housemate at the time, was just like, "This is just sharks." I'm not going to show any character vulnerability. No way. But hey, a reasonable threat. But yes. If you think that a stack of goblins in a trench coat are a fun time, and I know there are multiple people in chat that are a big fan of goblins, please do check out cobblepathgames.co.uk or at cobblepath on Twitter. All right, moving on. Colossal.
My name is Alice Angel. I'm here on behalf of Nick Angel, who's the creator of Colossal. He has written and drawn this beautiful book, which is a solo RPG adventure where you are playing a character journeying through the world of Colossal, which is a colossal castle. Rooms are the size of continents. It can take months to traverse from one wall to the other. And the mystery of the whole world is that no one has ever managed to escape the castle. People dedicate their lives exploring room beyond room, and yet no one has ever reached the outside world. No one knows what lies beyond the Colossal.
Wow. A solo RPG is actually something that's new to me. I know that solo RPGs have become more popular, but I've never really like tried playing one myself. What's the kind of like what's the unique feel of doing a single player RPG?
Sure. So a solo RPG can be kind of a bit of escapism and somewhat mindful if you need some way to just relax. But it's also a really great way of exploring creativity. So Colossal specifically, and I think many other solo RPGs, do kind of encourage creative writing and just letting your mind go to places that you otherwise would never have imagined. I myself struggle with a blank piece of paper. If you tell me to write a story, I just can't. So something like Colossal gives you the framework and the prompts to just spark ideas and imagination in you that make you think, oh yeah, wouldn't it be cool if my character discovered this and did that and met this person and discovered this treasure. And basically this solo RPG in particular exists to kind of fuel that creative thinking in people. You can still play it more like a game. You don't have to write chapters and chapters, but if you just want to have fun and let your mind wander, then I'd say Colossal is a really good way of doing that.
Ah. And if the people out there want to go and find Colossal for themselves and find out more about it, where should they go?
So, colossal.com. So that is spelt COLOSTLE. So like a colossal castle. Mash the words together. Colossal.com. We have a mailing list where people can keep in touch with like everything that's going on. We also have an amazing Discord community. We've got over 1,000 people in there sharing their artwork, their stories, asking questions. So by all means, do feel free. Anyone should be able to join in that Discord, see what the community is all about, and visit colossal.com to buy a copy.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This type of thing is super fascinating to me. One of the things that really draws me to the world of tabletop RPGs, especially as a performance medium, is the idea of collaborative storytelling. So the idea of doing a solo tabletop RPG just kind of goes like, in my brain, like, why? Why would you? So it was actually really interesting to hear kind of talk about how people use solo RPGs as like a moment of mindfulness but structured, or as a creative storytelling prompt. That's definitely really, really interesting. And I must say, even from the banners that you can see in that shot, really pretty, really, really pretty. It has a big kind of like, and this isn't disparaging, like webtoons feel. You know, it has this kind of very specific art style that makes me think of like a modern era, like fortnightly webcomic kind of vibe. And the fact that, you know, she said that a lot of the people who are fans of Colossal are also drawing their own art of the world and possibly illustrating their stories, making them webcomics in that kind of vibe, I think is really, really, really interesting. It's a delightful way to get a large number of people to kind of collectively build the canon of your world by telling lots of individual stories, which I think is really interesting. Really, really interesting. I'm quite extroverted, so I think I'd miss the joy of being around others. Also, it's a big more pressure on yourself since you need to do all the work on making the story good. I'd like to try one sometime though. Yes, I think I agree with you. I guess if you're doing it and you know you're not even being observed, if you're doing a solo RPG. Not even for actual play, I guess the kind of like pressure of storytelling is maybe lightened so much because at any point you could just throw your hands up in the air and be like, I don't want to engage with that, and nobody's going to stop you. I guess it's like video games, right? You could set the game to easy mode and do the stuff you don't want to do, and some people fully reject the idea of not engaging with the game's rules, even though you're not being judged or it doesn't affect anything. But yeah, being able to kind of engage with a solo RPG on one's own terms is very interesting. I would be very interested to learn of a solo RPG that fits my kind of like aesthetic and vibes, that really kind of high energy, slightly to incredibly anime, maybe more modern or near future kind of setting that would work really well as actual play. I would be very interested to go and try that kind of game. I think I would need a solo RPG that fits what I already really enjoy about storytelling to get me on board, but I can absolutely see why so many people are really big fans of solo RPGs and how they can exist as meditative experiences. Also, I'm not one to be left to be left with my own thoughts. That idea is fully terrifying to me. Goodness no. Though there are a lot of solo RPGs that are also about getting to the core of your own personal self, that kind of meditative stuff within a tabletop RPG framework. And absolutely not. I do not want to go and face my true self. This ain't Persona. No way. But yes, it sounds like Colossal has a very fantastic Discord community, and if that sounds like your thing, please do go visit colossal.com and go find their Discord link. I'm sure they'd be happy to see you. Moving on. MacGuffin Co. Yes.
I would love to. So I am Sasha Sienna, and I am here with MacGuffin & Company. We make smart games for cool weirdos. So we're an indie RPG company, and we've got some of our wonderful games for sale at the UK Games Expo. Trying to drag in the cool weirdos with our smart games. One of our games is actually up for an award.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much. We're up for Best Role-Playing Game Adventure with Odd Jobs, which is an anthology of 11 system-neutral micro settings, and each one of them comes with a campaign that's like 4 adventures plus a bunch of ideas to spin it out into something longer if you want.
And I get to be really smug about that because I have actually written for that book.
Yes, you have, and it was absolutely wonderful words that you wrote. Was it? Completely forgotten. It was Fixer Upper that you wrote for, wasn't it?
Yes. Tiny robots going on the big planet adventure with lots of plants to speak to, and maybe they discover humanity within themselves, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like terraforming robots coming to terms with their burgeoning personhood and the sentience of other life forms different to themselves, which I've been pitching as an adventure, like an actual use for my philosophy degree, damn it, parents.
Nice. Yeah. And it also means that if you win, that means I also get to win
means
just
you're
a little
also
bit.
an award winner.
Yeah. I've also been eyeing up on your table. You have Zero Void. Me being a fan of like sci-fi and cyberpunk, I've been looking at the cover of that and being like, ooh, shiny.
Oh, I love Zero Void's art particularly. So that is, you are incompetent space criminals. Johnny keeps saying that they don't have to be incompetent, but I've never run it for people who aren't playing it incompetent.
Sure, gotcha.
So you are space criminals of dubious competence in over their heads on a job gone wrong, and then it just escalates from there. It's a zero prep one shot where the system just you're always succeeding at what you're trying to do, but you're always rolling to see if you make things worse as well. Yeah, so that's very fun. And we've just launched Kasplat at the convention as well, which is a hyperkinetic. It's the funniest game book that you will find at this convention, guaranteed. I would say.
Gotcha.
It's like Saturday morning cartoon vibes. We can't say it's like Looney Tunes or Animaniacs because those companies are very litigious.
But you know,
yeah.
if that's your vibe, maybe you should go check it out for sure. If the party people out there want to go find you and your work,
Yes.
where can they go?
Well, if they are at the expo, they can come to stand 1231, and if they are elsewhere in the existence of the wider world, they can go to MacGuffinandCompany.com or find us MacGuffin Co on Twitter.
Marvelous. Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you. Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah. These are also people that I've written for. MacGuffin Co are a relatively new, I think, publishing company, but they've been working really hard and putting lots of new stuff out. They actually they omitted in that interview. She omitted one of the games that she's currently working on, which is a 2-player, or rather a player and a GM like OSR comedy dungeon crawl. I need to go and double check the name of that because it feels definitely worth bringing up because I think that would also be of the vibe of people in chat today. There we go. Apologies while I filibuster for time while going and find Pit Crawl. Yes. Pit Crawler very recently. I think finished its Kickstarter campaign, or yes, yeah. Here we go. We have a tweet handy that we can go and link, so people can go and check that out. So yeah, Pit Crawler is a GM and 1-player comedy OSR dungeon crawler kind of deal. The idea that you will perish is very much the point, and it's making the joy of going through that kind of thing. So they've been working on a ton of things. I think Odd Jobs is their biggest project, and in fact, I do have a copy of that handy, so we can go and hide. If I hide this is gonna... Hold on. Can I get it to remember... Where's play were not visible? Pause were not visible. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. It's fine. It's fine. We'll go and we'll go and hide it for now. Yeah, there we go. We'll just have to cycle back when we get it. But yes, this is the hardback of Odd Jobs. So this is a whole bunch of RPG micro settings, system agnostic. So they don't come with any kind of like mechanical rule sets, but are there for you to go and adapt a system of your choice. I don't think all of them work with all settings, systems, obviously. The scenario that I have in here, Fixer Upper, with some really fantastic artwork, actually. I really love the artwork in this. Of these robots. The idea is that you are all robots who have been programmed with different forms of analysis tools. So somebody being able to check air quality, somebody being able to kind of detect changes in water. One of you is a really good cartographer, and so on and so forth. And you've been sent to a planet that Earth thinks is uninhabited for you to go and check and see if it has all the required signs of life for the Earth to move to that planet and colonize it. And then upon arriving at the planet, you find, you have like a little mission control called Cortex. You find that it is full of sentient plants. And the sentient plants are able to communicate between themselves and in ways that you might find quite difficult to communicate with. But, you know, the vines, for example, communicate by sending water through themselves, and then the robot that can detect changes in water can therefore understand the vines. And through working together, you manage to work out a way to communicate with the plants and realize that they are actually more than just the quote-unquote dumb plants we have on Earth. However, that might not necessarily qualify for the humanity standards that Cortex is looking for, and doesn't think that these plants are actually sapient beings. So it becomes an entire story of an anti-colonialist story inherently, for one, and then two, a thing about robot personhood and what counts as a person. Are these robots people? Are these plants people? Can either of them get the be considered the agency of people? And my section in here, it's quite a long scenario that they kind of gave, but there is where is the bonus content? This is the bonus content that I've written. You might not necessarily, is there a way for me to be able to, you're gonna have to look at it upside down, I'm sorry. But you can see by Nathan Blades, that's me, that's moi. Yeah, so I have a whole bunch of extra locations, specific plants, and some sample scenarios. I'll read one for you, shall I? I'll read one for you. So we have the pale lattice is one of the plants that you can encounter. Known by local plants of all kinds, but specifically feared by other trees, this fig tree sits quietly as a hollow column, an intricate grid of thin interwoven trunks. It propagates best by embedding its seeds into other trees, using them as a frame to grow around, eventually encircling and killing the host tree. The other plants know this and have often appealed to it to consume trees considered especially disagreeable. Fulfilling these requests in more distant lands was thought impossible until the robots arrived. So it was actually quite interesting writing the plant life, because all of the plant, I gave 4 different plant examples in here, and each of them is actually based on a real plant that I thought was especially strange or unusual in its properties. And then if an alien version of that plant that could talk to you had those properties, how would they behave? So the strangler fig is for example a type of tree that, as that description says, grows around existing trees and then uses that to kind of get the most light and the most water, and eventually kills the tree on the inside. And I was like, well, that would be like some kind of hitman plant, right? So wrote that scenario, you know, you get what I mean. There are PDF versions of this as well. So even if you can't have the very, very shiny hardback, and in fact they were very, very nice and gave this to me as a contributor's copy. But there are PDF versions of Odd Jobs available, and it did actually win the award at UKGE of the like innovative tabletop RPG of the year, meaning that I, by proxy, won an award. So I will. I'd like to thank my mother. I'd like to thank the Academy. No, I don't take any credit to them winning, but it was an honor to be invited to go and write for a book that clearly so many people have really enjoyed. And we also got a copy of Zero Void that we talked about. Look at the artwork on the cover of this. Oh my god! I saw initially the Twitter post of this, and I was like, oh, sick, I need this. But yeah, the idea of it's you know, an interstellar cyberpunk heist simulator. A lot of cyberpunk games are very heist focused, but that's okay. I really enjoy that style of tabletop RPG, because I really got into doing tabletop RPGs via cyberpunk games by running like Shadowrun Anarchy. I really like the focused directiveness of heist and mission-based play, because you always know where you're going to be going and what you need to be doing, and the tension is always high. You don't really have time to like fuck around and vacillate on plans when like people are after your neck, right? So I always found that kind of like style of play really cool. So there's a whole bunch of kind of like sample characters we have here. The style is very minimalist but quite clean. Yeah, I haven't actually had the chance to read through this myself, so we're just kind of doing this flip through, and they have all the different kind of countdowns. So there's like a sprawl style clocks involved. So that makes sense to me. That makes sense. I think we have a bit of a scenario that we can run here. And then we have an illustration of the publisher's cat at the end. A cyberpunk version of their cat, which is adorable. Yeah. Real pretty. I'll definitely find a way to go and give this a go in the future. Yeah, nice. Okay, back to the interviews, skipping through. We have GMD Online. Yeah.
Hello there, I'm Martin Harper. I'm from GMD Online, and we are a games design company. We also got our own printing company as well, which is DPI Online. So, and what we're selling today is our core RPG, which is a universal cinematic role-playing game.
And you were telling me earlier that the one of the big takeaways from it is that you are mechanically rewarded for getting into character and roleplay.
Absolutely. The rewards that you get for role-playing, it encourages those players to get involved into the games. The rewards that you get are for that interaction. It's got to be relevant to the scene, and if you can even bring in something about your background that you've spent hours putting together, that 9-page background the GM never reads. If you're able to bring that into the game, you get extra points as well.
Shade.
So all the effort you've put in developing your character, you're able to use in the game that might not normally you use. It might get forgotten during a dungeon hack, but here you can bring it in. It'd be relevant and get rewarded for it.
And you also mentioned that this is kind of an open genre system, so you can run any type of genre.
Yes, it will do any genre you can think of. We've even got mixed genre games that we've done, like our Western is a steampunk Western with fantasy element as well. And that's Once Upon a Steam. There will come out as a campaign setting. We've got 12 settings through it all. It will do anything from dark horror, fantasy, sci-fi, superhero, and any combination of.
And I see that you have miniatures over there, so it's miniatures compatible?
It is very miniature compatible, especially the dynamics of the cinematic combat system that we've got. If you're using miniatures, your miniatures will not be static on the board during combat. Even every defensive move you do will move your miniature about, forcing your enemy to move, and you've got that dance of death of a combat scene that you see in the combat. You're knocking people back, they can knock them through walls. In a superhero games it gets even more so, but even in the normal style of the game, people are being pushed back a couple of paces. So they're always moving, getting closer to especially if you're fighting near a chasm. You know, it brings those elements from the movies into your stories.
I got you. And
we do have a miniature range as well that comes with it, and that's expanding over the years as well.
Cool. And you mentioned that you're also a printing company, so you print like board games and tabletop RPGs.
Absolutely. My whole passion is gaming. My printing company mainly prints from my local stores for Chinese restaurants, etc. However, being an avid gamer, what I've done for the show and onwards is I've axed all my printing prices to help my fellow gaming brothers and sisters expand into the dreams that they want. I believe everybody's got an adventure or a game in them, and I'm trying my best to help them achieve that. I've got very low prices, and I also have a free service that will help them understand how to go to print as well, so they don't fall into any pitfalls. And that's all free. They can come on my Discord channel and I will share my screen, show them how to do it. And I even offer design services where I can get their ideas into game mechanics, and we've got communities that we play test as well.
Oh, fantastic. And if people want to go and find GMD Online and DPI Online?
So GMD Online is www.gmdonline.co.uk. Digital printing ideas is www.dpionline.co.uk.
Marvellous. Thank you very much.
No worries, thank you.
Yes, Bez, definitely. I want to speak to these folks because they were interesting to me for two reasons. One, that it's actually kind of unusual these days for systems to be, and this isn't said disparagingly, but generic systems. So that means tabletop RPGs that are not going for a specific genre or setting, but are designed to be able to cater to all like settings. The classic one that people think of when you talk about like generic systems is like GURPS. Because that I think stands for generic universal role-playing system, so that's why they're all called generic systems, which has so many kind of additional rule books. So if you want to do something, there will inevitably be a rule from it in a book that you can use, and that has spread to a wide range of other games. Fantasy Flight Games has their Genesis with a Y role-playing system, for example. But there aren't that many. Because theoretically, you could have the best generic roleplay system, and then because it could cover all genres, you wouldn't need any others. So it's not one that people tend to compete on very often. So it's quite interesting that they went for that kind of thing that could run all sorts of things as their kind of main. I think they lean towards a bit more of a modern sci-fi angle based on their kind of like branding, but I thought that was really interesting. But also the fact that it's a company that has the printing company alongside it. Yeah, Bez, in that there are so many independent designers in tabletop RPGs particularly, but in other kind of like, you know, board game spaces as well, where the process of making your first print can be really difficult. I mean, I printed my first zine, my only zine, really. I've thought a handful of times about printing more, but I would want them to be fancy in the way that I don't have the skills for yet, you know what I mean? But I had to learn a lot in terms of doing layout for that, and it was merciful that was actually a pretty straightforward black and white style thing, so there wasn't really much that I could fuck up. But being able to actually speak to somebody who has the experience on doing setting and layout for tabletop RPGs and knows what should be in them to make them a usable product, you know, the number of people that just don't put in contents pages in their surprisingly long zine, or don't put page numbers or anything like that, or don't really consider stuff like bleed and setting. Having somebody who can explain that to you for free and then also put you on the road to being able to actually print that for you, even if it's just test prints, is actually really useful. So I figured it'd be really cool to go and highlight these folks as somebody who might be able to do that if you're UK based. So if you are thinking of working out other ways of being able to get your stuff printed, or you've been having knocking in the back of your head an idea that you want to get printed and don't know the best ways of making that a reality, why not speak to these guys? They might be able to give you some advice. Okay. Zatu Games, yes.
Hi there, my name's Tom, and I'm working here on the Zatu Games store for the UK Games Expo, and I'm demoing Steel Colosseum, which is from NISEI Games, and it's the first game that Zatu Games have been publishing. It's currently up on Kickstarter, but I think by the time this goes out, it will be available.
Kickstarter may be over, but I'm sure you've heard about it now. They had a pretty solid ad campaign.
Absolutely, late pledges will probably be available at some point in the future if this is something that interests you. But yeah, Steel Colosseum is a robot battling game where you'll be taking teams of 2 robots and battling them against each other. It plays between 1 and 4 players, takes about an hour to an hour and a half to play a full game. And what you'll be doing is you'll be setting up a team of these 2 robots, customizing them by adding these upgrade systems, and then you'll take them out onto the battlefield and fight each other by playing cards down, resolving them in initiative order, and trying to basically outmaneuver and better your opponents.
Yeah, I believe it was kind of like described earlier in the campaign as it being very Robot Wars inspired, and the nostalgia bomb of that is like astounding.
It is. These are the house robots you'll get here in the box. So yeah, it's if you did enjoy Robot Wars growing up, you're going to find something to like here, I think.
Nice. If you were to go and have a robot from Robot Wars be like a guest character in this game, who would it be?
I remember there was one that looked a lot like a scorpion, and it had like a big knife that just cut
Dead
down.
Metal.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'd like Dead Metal to be here, I think.
Absolutely. If people wanted to go and find more about Steel Colosseum and Zatu Games on the internet, where would they go?
They would go to boardgame.co.uk. I think boardgame.com, is the Zatu Games website. NISEI is NISEIgames.com, I believe. And obviously the Kickstarter will be there if you go to Kickstarter and search for Steel Coliseum. You'll be able to see all the details of the campaign and what you get in the box.
Marvelous, thank you very much.
No worries, thanks for playing. It's been brilliant.
I was the biggest nerd for Robot Wars when I was 10. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. I realized in retrospect that the person I was interviewing was probably referring to Razor, which was a competitor robot, not a house robot. But yeah, the one with the big piercing beak. I also cheered a lot for Razor when I was a kid because they were really cool. I think they're probably one of the biggest fan favorite robots in that series, actually. But yes, channeling that kind of nostalgia of robot combat into a board game, I'm like, ooh, yes, please, very good. Needy Cat Games are and you played it on public access. Yeah, because you would have gotten BattleBots in the US, which is kind of like not made by the same people, but the same premise done in the US. But it's actually really cool that you actually got to see the UK Robot Wars. Was that with Craig Charles hosting as well, actually? Yeah, BattleBots was less good. So I hear. There was actually to do a brief tangent. That was actually a revival. Yeah. The Craig Charles era. Hell yes. Me too. There was actually a revival of Robot Wars a couple years ago. I want to say 2017, with Dara Bryn hosting instead, who is, in my opinion, not as good as Craig Charles. But that was actually really interesting because they were definitely taking the classic 90s format of early 2000s format of Robot Wars and then employing modern reality TV like storytelling with the rounds of combat and following the families as they competed. And that actually was astounding. They did some really, really interesting storytelling in like the pit room that they never did back in the day. And it was actually really nice to be able to get a view of what it was like to build them as hobbyists, and some of the people who were building them who were not so much hobbyists as really intense, which was really cool. I think that kind of, but it only really ran for the one season. Actually, if you're in a position to, I don't even think it's available on iPlayer anymore, but if you do actually manage to go and find that 2017 season of Robot Wars, I am actually in the audience in one of the episodes. So it cuts over to me as I applaud some robots being destroyed. It was very funny. So with that in mind, I was very excited for Steel Coliseum. As it says, the Kickstarter is over. But they probably are still doing late pledges. The other draw of this for me, and what made me want to go and find at the expo and chat to them, was the specific aesthetic style. So the robots themselves are definitely more in the way of like mechs. These are not directly piloted. There's nobody inside these. There's somebody remotely controlling them like in real Robot Wars. But they have a much more futuristic kind of like vibe, cyberpunky vibe. There's lots of character cards, and they also have a very kind of like lo-fi cyberpunk design. But all the packaging and all the color use, and especially all the cards that you use, have a really like 90s graphic design. If you've ever seen any of the like 90s run of Netrunner, when that was still owned or published by Wizards of the Coast, that kind of like visual design for the cards is still here as well. It's a really interesting retro future blend, and that really caught my imagination. I love that. Zatu Games, for the record, as said in that interview, they are a games retailer primarily, and actually, as I understand, quite a good in terms of savings game retailer. My partner tends to buy from Zatu Games a lot for cheapest prices. So this is their first publishing attempt. And Needy Cat Games have designed usually on like they have partnered with IPs and other publishers to design and produce games. So Needy Cat Games have previously done a Hellboy board game, for example. So this is an interesting collaboration, actually, like thinking industry-wise, where you can be a company that designs both internally and on commission games to be published. That's quite interesting. It makes me think of how there are some developing companies in video games, for example, that produce their games like in-house, but then will also do like licensed games. WayForward comes to mind. Platinum Games comes to mind. So it's interesting that there's an example of that in the world of board games as well. I thought multiple times, should I contact the people that I know at UK Games and ask if they will send me one of these miniatures to paint while it was on the Kickstarter drive. Never really worked up the bottle to do, because like I've done some painting streams before, but I am not a professional painter. I am very, very amateur, and I think they would probably want their stuff to be painted by people more competent than I. But I am actually quite excited to go and paint these minis when they arrive in the box. The mini designs are really, really cool. Okay, moving on. Yeah, we have Bez. This was the first chronologically that I recorded in the day, so this is the roughest audio, unfortunately. I will warn that in advance. It's still passable, but like just forewarned. Oh,
hello,
no.
I am Bez, and I am showing off a whole bunch of games. I am best known for Yogi, the best game of physical constraints. Kind of known for previous games, the L-Deck, the Kitty Cataclysm, sadly out of print, but the last year I've been super prolific and super experimental. So we've got a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. We've got a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your beetroots. A game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements, which is a weird experiment that if I wasn't doing print on demand, I wouldn't have the confidence to do it. But I've now sold almost, I printed 200 so far and I've almost sold out, so that's good. A game about quickly matching words to pictures, but never words to words or pictures to pictures, which again is just me thinking, hey, there's a lot of matching games, what other small twist can I make? And there's a game about counting cats, shapes and colours that keeps getting trickier, but let's not forget, I have a machine that can literally put games inside balloons, and in order of this machine, I made a game about stuffing balloons as a team without talking, but it's a card game, there are no actual balloons. So this is my first cooperative game for 3 to 5 players, but it still has the simplicity that I've been known for. And I'm really excited, there's just a great buzz around.
Yeah, one of the things I did actually want to ask you is the naming convention you have with your current release of games, because I have one of your previous games, the Wibble Plus Plus box of cards that can be used for a wide variety of different games, and each of those games has a naming convention ending in L, E-L-L. But these new games, you described a number of them earlier, but for example, one of them being...
I didn't describe it, I gave the title.
You gave that's exactly what I'm saying. You gave the title, which was also the description in a very long form way. For example, a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings, then complementing the complements. So what made you decide for this kind of new naming convention for your games?
Well, it started off with a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. So at first I was like, okay, what do I call this? Strange Animal Noises was the working title, which is not that fun, and it's like, okay, so what do I give this? And then I was trying to describe it. Someone said, oh, you called them wee whimsical creatures, that's quite a nice thing. And then I put it up on Twitter, asked people what they would like, and then some people said, oh, how about musical merry monsters? And people like the wee whimsical creatures the best, and someone said, hey, how about a Victorian style title that tells you what the game's about? So a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. So it was for a joke to start off, but then I really like it because it makes it easy to pitch. It means that if I want to tell you, hey, would you like to play a game about quickly matching words to pictures but never words to words or pictures to pictures, you kind of already know what to do. And as soon as you match 2 words, I'll say, no, never words to words. And then you've got to give a card away as a penalty. I mean, I don't give all the rules away in the rules of, And the title, obviously, that would be ridiculous.
But it gives you the nice top line so you know what
And
you're getting
that
into.
will be a forthcoming game where the title is actually longer than
the game rules itself.
Yes.
Wow.
Do you see that poster?
I do see that poster.
That poster.
That is a name. The name is still under construction.
I will have to remember to take a picture of that so I can show everybody alongside the interview. Fantastic. One last question for you. If people want to find you and your work, where can they go to go find it?
Please come to stuffbybez.com. So I sell my stuff on stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, but I'm mostly active on Twitter, kind of on Instagram, but I just like talking about games. So hit me up, and if you're in London, let's maybe playtest together.
Ah, yeah. You do daily streams and stuff as well. It's super impressive.
Yeah, thank you. At shows, I do sometimes do them a bit late. Like today, I did it at 10:30 rather than 10. But frankly, the fact that I even did it today on a Saturday, I think, is
Very dedicated. Very dedicated. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Nathan, for coming by. It's always a delight to see you.
Bez is such a delight. She's excuse me. Bez is an absolute treasure. She's amazing. Yeah, I actually know Bez from, earlier we were talking about how I used to do interviews, the interviewing LGBTQ plus creators on Passion Project. And at the same time, Bez was doing the Board Games with Bez podcast for the same online radio network, Bunkerzilla, which is how I got to know her. And it was really interesting to go and meet other people who are also in the same kind of tabletop gaming creator hobby. She's really, I think, quite adventurous in terms of game design. Yogi is one of her first games, which you can see in the leftmost banner there as the kind of general function of how that game works. You're drawing cards and the cards tell you to do a specific thing while holding the card, and then it's almost Twister-esque in that you try to hold as many cards as possible while filling all of the criteria, and then if you fail, you're out. And then from there, which has been published in a whole bunch of different languages, and actually I think I once, while in Prague seeing family, went into the board game shop in their main shopping mall and saw a copy of Yogi. It's I know who made that game. Yeah. And then there's the Wibble deck, which I have. Hold on just a second. I'll go retrieve that. It's in range. Where are you? You're over here somewhere. Gosh darn sure. Where are you? I know that you're here. I spent a long time organizing this space. I should be able to find you, and I am swiftly realizing that I cannot. How embarrassing. Dear. Oh, damn it. Okay. Fine. We're not going to spend the entire stream looking for a single board game, but I do know that you're here somewhere. You see something literally all the time, and then the moment you are no longer, the moment that you need it, here it is. The moment you're looking for it is no longer available. Yeah, there we go. And we can go and hide. Beep, beep. Where is it? Oh my god. There we go. Technology is a curse. The Wibble++ deck, and I have a shiny kind of foil version. I think Bez said that this is now out of print, so I'm actually quite lucky to be able to have it. And thanks to the mirror on the opposite wall. Nice. It's a whole bunch of, it's like a deck of cards, and each card has lots of different types of information on it, different patterns, different numbers, different pairings of letters, and there are, it's essentially a game design challenge to make games that use all of these cards' functions in different ways. The game comes with a whole bunch of different rules that you can play, and then there is also a game design competition every year, which I do believe Bez offers a cash prize for. for the best new game design. So it's essentially a game engine, right? You know, we think of like Unity and stuff as like video game design engines. But this is a board game that is itself designed to play other games, which I think is really, really cool. So it's neat that I have a little bit of interesting game design history in this box. But Bez was also very, very kind to go and give me a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings, and then complementing the complements. And as I said, these are self-published and print on demand. Which is why they have more economical packaging, but it is able to go and print more unusual games at a scale that reflects what people's demand for it is, which is quite interesting. So let's go and read this little game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings, and then complementing the complements with 2 to 5-ish players in 10 to 20-ish minutes. Includes 52 cards. One side of each card is a creature feature. The other side helps guide the complements. Everyone draws a creature combining 4 creature features. Each drawing has a grand reveal and is complemented by everyone else. Finally, each artist complements a complement they got. If anyone deflects or rejects a complement, they lose. Otherwise, everyone wins. So we would, for example, be designing a monster with something dripping, with eyes in strange places, with long eyelashes on those eyes, and a cute nose. And then we're going to go and design this creature, and everybody else is going to go and design their creatures. And then on the back, we have advice on how to give compliments. Assume all compliments are genuine. Say thank you, or maybe even thank you, I appreciate that, which is very interesting. Yeah, a bunch of prizes for the annual L Deck contest, £100 in cash, about £150 worth of games, 12 hours consultation, and a free table to demo your game at UK Games Expo, which is very cool. Very, very cool. This is fun. I am okay at taking compliments. I could be better at taking compliments, and the game that kind of forces me to be better at taking compliments is quite good. Also, a game that forces me to do on-the-fly rapid character design is very good for me personally, because I really enjoy that kind of process. So this is definitely going to be a game I'm going to be playing with friends at some point. I think I'd really, really enjoy playing that. That might be something that'd be interesting to do digitally, actually. I'd have to... If I'm the person with the deck, it means that I would have to be privy to the prompts that other people get, but I don't really think that that's a problem, to be honest with you. It might be fun to go and play this in a way where I can play with my friends online, and we can all draw using like tablets or whatever as a way of practicing. Because I'm okay with drawing on pad and paper, but I think practicing on drawing on tablet would be something I'd be good at doing. But yeah, this is really, if you want really unusual, funky games like this that are very customized, personal, but still quite silly and lighthearted experience, please do check out stuff by Bez. This one seems like it'd be good to play with a wide range of ages for the players. Yes, very kid-friendly, very, very kid-friendly. All ages board games are a thing that I don't necessarily have to worry about because I don't have kids. But, you know, finding games that are actually available for everybody to play is always great. So, yeah, nice. Let's bring this back up. Oh, it remembered the place. Excellent. Yes, this one. Hell yeah.
I'm David. I'm the developer of Drags to Riches, which is the drag queen themed deck building card game. So players take on the role of drag queens who've just started out on the circuit. They've got a wardrobe, it's got some looks in there, but to be honest, it's a terrible hairpiece, it's some rubbish heels, a naff outfit. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the cards in your deck to buy better cards from the common market in the game, and then you're going to lay those down in combinations that allow you to outcompete the other queens and win events. Every round has a different event that's worth a different number of points, but only one of you can win that event by revealing your look at the right time.
No, it's a nice mixture of having the hidden hand kind of deal. When I was doing the demo earlier, I was doing loads of combo plays. I still lost. But it was definitely fun to play deck building games with a new energy.
Yeah.
I started with like Dominion and then was like, oh, this isn't for me. And then Slay the Spire and all the digital deck building games came out. Now I'm back in a big way.
Yeah.
What other deck building were you inspired by other kind of existing games?
Yeah, so like obviously, you know, most people who are into deck builders know Dominion as like the granddaddy of it all. I really loved Shards of Infinity, if you've played that. I played a couple of other online ones as well, but so they kind of inspired the deck building element. And what I did was I kind of used those as a framework to work from and say, well, what have these got in terms of their card distributions? Took that, started working on it myself, and then said, now what do I want to add into this to make it different from those other deck builders? So I think the things that make my deck builder quite interesting and unique, it's got a push your luck style element in it. You never know who's going to reveal a look at the same time as you, so there's this bluffing style element. And yeah, I think your ability to alter the composition of other players' decks by lending them cards or borrowing cards from them, I think it makes it unique in the market in general.
And let's see. What kind of if you could have any kind of existing drag queens be a cameo character in the game, who'd you want in?
Well, it's funny you should say that. So we have some videos that have been made by Latrice Royale and Bag of Chips. Latrice, absolute sweetheart, love her to bits. We showed her a card that we made for her, and she said she loves it. So hopefully we can convince her to let us put one in the game, maybe a bonus pack for an expansion pack where we've got some real world queens. It would be called the Legends of Drag expansion pack.
Yeah.
But I'd love Latrice, love Bob. Any of the big names, some of the big UK ones like Bagger would be great. I'm a big fan of Davina DeCampo as well. So yeah, I'd love anybody to get involved in this. So
yes, I personally wait. If you do a Drag King expansion, I will.
So that is the plan. So if all goes well with this, then obviously this is about drag queens. This one, most people know about the drag queen world because of RuPaul.
Yes.
But a lot of people don't know about the other forms of drag that exist out there. And I know I've chosen drag queens because it's the one that people will know, but I actually want to do justice to the whole drag community. So once this one's out the door, once the Kickstarter succeeds, the plan is to then start working on bringing in the whole drag family. I don't know what that game's going to look like yet, but that's my plan in the future.
Awesome. And if people want to find out more about Drags to Riches and the other stuff that you do, where can they go for it?
Go to drags2riches.com. That's 2 with a number 2, and that's our website. You'll find out all about Drags to Riches. You can sign up to the mailing list where we'll start talking about the other games that we're developing currently. But right now, the best thing anybody can do is go to our Kickstarter, Drags to Riches again with the number 2, and you'll find us there.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I adored this game. This game is so cute. Oh my gosh. Yes. As I said in the interview, my first encounter with playing deck builder games was Dominion, and I played that and then immediately went, deck building games are horrible. I hate them as a concept because that game is specifically incredibly boring. The art style is boring. The way that you play that game efficiently is boring with quite minimum interaction. It's just, I don't think, a really good example of highlighting how fun customizing a deck can be in an environment other than deck building in, say, like a trading card game. But this takes that idea of building an engine that a lot of deck building board games are, but adds a lot of interactivity to it. So all the cards that you get in this game are different parts of your drag outfit, your hair, your accessories, your makeup, and so on and so forth. And each of them has an ability that you can use, or a cost that you can use to buy something from the pool of available cards, or you can put it face down on your look spread, and then at the end of every round you say as to whether you want to demo your look or if you want to save it for a future round. And the person, if you reveal your look, if you have the highest value of look, then you win the round. But if you reveal your hand at all, even if you don't win, it's all stripped away and you have to start from the beginning again. So it becomes a really interesting, push, as they say, push your luck style game of how long do you want to hold on to your dope outfit for? Do you want to interfere with other people's outfits and things like that? And also, I really respect the designer for wanting to, you can technically use the same look twice, but because you're gaining new cards, and the early look that you get is not very good. It's worth very, very little. You are very much encouraged to be endlessly adapting your look. But I do also really respect the designer of the game, and as he said, his commitment to trying to wider represent drag as an art form and a community, because I think it's very easy to lean into some very specific stereotypes about what drag is, especially when what you know about drag is informed via RuPaul's Drag Race. I know plenty of people in the queer community, especially a number of trans women, who think that drag queens specifically are quite can be misogynist or transphobic in how they operate, because some of the way that especially early RuPaul's Drag Race is portrayed leans into being, unfortunately, ironically misogynistic or transphobic, right? So that he's kind of taken the care to avoid those stereotypes, both visually and mechanically. You can play the game and build your deck in a way where you are giving and borrowing cards in a way that you are not necessarily interfering with other people. You can win without having to actively interfere with other people's game plans if you wanted to win like that. You can do surprisingly complicated combos as well, actually, which was quite fun. Once I had a couple of cards in my deck, I was doing things where I was intentionally throwing cards into the floordrobe. The graveyard is your floordrobe, and then pulling cards back into my hand and using one card multiple times to buy multiple things. I still lost, but I felt very cool. I felt very cool as I was doing it. So I actually look forward to this game that is visually accessible and inherently queer in its styling. Yes, the floordrobe, exactly. Inherently queer in its styling, but also could be have the tools to be complicated and get some bite, some texture to the mechanics. The current card mechanics for this base set are quite straightforward, but because, like Dominion and like other deck building card games, you can have expansions. I really look forward to seeing what expansions could be like mechanically and allow for more complex versions of play. This is a game that is currently in Kickstarter, so they weren't able to go and give me. I wasn't able to buy the game, otherwise I would have actually bought the game then and there if I was able to. But they did give me the QRL card. That QR code does actually take you to the Kickstarter campaign. So that ability at the bottom is essentially a once per game ability. It is your character's super. It is your character's super effect, and you only get to use it once, but it's usually pretty good. So once per game, I can use QRL's ability to immediately gain 5 coin to buy something. 5 coin is a lot. Or I can keep until the end of the game for an additional 2 victory points. So that's actually quite interesting as an ability. And then it gives you like the kind of like additional keyword. So shade are cards that interact with your opponents, and you can keep in your hand a shade block card to prevent from being fucked with. Very fun. This game's real cute. It is quite affordable as well. I don't think they've met their goal yet. So I would, if this sounds like fun, please do go check them out. Would love to go see them funded. I made big eyes emo. There's basically 2 tiers. There's buy the game and pay £200 to have a character of your choice rendered in the game. And I looked at that £200 and went, maybe. But I don't really have a drag character in mind. I wouldn't have a drag character to introduce. But someone out there. Yeah, still very suspicious of Kickstarter. I understand. Actually, this was the thing I wanted to bring up a couple of interviews ago. Cobblepath Games were talking about how their game is on GameFound, which is essentially a crowdfunding source specifically for tabletop games. It was initially designed for big box tabletop board games, your Kingdom Death Monster kind of like energy, where there's lots of minis and those kind of like publishing and fulfillments. and they've recently opened it out to the wider variety of tabletop experiences. So tabletop RPGs that aren't necessarily going to be big box physical products can use GameFound now. That's really nice. To explain, Bez, your question. So that last year before last, Kickstarter was kind of talking about how they were going to be supporting crypto as a funding method. And you know, the nature of cryptocurrency is super unstable and super not economically or environmentally sound. It's not economically sound either, to be honest with you. But yeah, the kind of blockchain stuff. And people were kind of like, no, absolutely not. Please don't do that. And they kind of sort of stepped back, but not really. And in these kind of instances, voting with your wallet can be a really, really vague thing, but I think when it's specifically voting with your wallet when the wallet is so unstable as to be a Bitcoin wallet, that could actually be really impactful in making people think about their policy in a much more sensible manner. So a lot of people have stepped away from Kickstarter as a result. However, in some instances, using Kickstarter is just the only way that you can get a thing made via crowdfunding because other options aren't sensibly available to you. This is drifting off the topic of board games specifically, but I have talked about on stream a handful of times that I am currently part as editor and a story writer for a queer anthology called NetherRealms. Previous anthologies by the same publisher, Discord Comics, have been funded via Kickstarter, and very successfully too, and therefore there is a big mailing list of people who are interested in this kind of content available only on Kickstarter as part of terms of service. You can't just message them and say, here, we're funding this Kickstarter somewhere else, go over here. That they specifically don't allow you to do that. So to be able to retain the audience who would be really interested and actually very easily fund this new book, it makes it really difficult to guarantee that unless we use Kickstarter again, which is definitely what Kickstarter has thought of, right? They've thought of that. So a lot of people have been kind of like their arm has been turned in terms of having to use it if they want to crowdfund something, especially since that as a book, the ways of funding that is a little different to funding, say, a tabletop RPG. Let's go read through a whole bunch of messages because a bunch of them came through at once. The whole thing from earlier in the year where they're investigating quote-unquote Web3 in the blockchain, the way that they were doing it also smacks of union busting. Bez says, I'm probably going to keep using it for now, but if they confirm that they're going down the NFT route, they might step away. Understandable. GameFound is an option, but you lose a ridiculous amount of attention, and GameFound is harder to back for most of my audience. Yes, so many people know of Kickstarter, and so few. You have to be kind of like inside baseball on the way of like, you have to be in the tabletop hobby to have heard of GameFound, but it works. You know, they're doing some shady shit, but there are a few creators that's the only way to support them. So you go, no, rock the hard place. They spun off a separate company to build the blockchain infrastructure their website will be on. They said they'll be moving all Kickstarter assets to a new company when the infrastructure is done, which would be a really convenient way for them to essentially fire everyone in the union without them having to do maliciously for the legal definition. Oh, yeah. Yeah, very, very, very complicated. Very, very complicated circumstances. It does mean that I guess prior to that being made real, it's still like quote unquote safe to use the platform, but the cut that they take from Kickstarter runs does go towards funding these other machinations, and that's complicated, and you kind of have to make do with whether you are or aren't comfortable about it. I don't begrudge the people who are still continuing to use Kickstarter to fund their projects, because that's the only way that you can. I definitely understand that. So there's no begrudging, but it does make those choices pretty difficult. If Drags to Riches was on GameFound, would love that. The fact that they're not doing that, I understand. And if you don't want to back something that's via Kickstarter at the moment, I also entirely understand. Here's hoping that the people that are comfortable with supporting it on Kickstarter means that they get to do extended print runs where you can buy it via other venues, and they could be supported outside of that, and maybe they can find other ways to crowdfund. Lots of words about a very industry stuff can be so fascinating, and I've realized I know very little about some of the other comes and goings, but hopefully that was a useful insight to somebody. Okay. Moving on to the next. Project NISEI. Yes.
I'm Serenity. I am here with NISEI, and we are selling Netrunner.
Yes, I was a huge fan of Netrunner in its original run before it was then kicked to the curb. So it's really interesting to see it revived in this new form.
Yeah, well, we never really went away. We just we haven't done any trade shows. We haven't had a lot of media attention. So we've kind of just been trucking along now for nearly 4 years. It's our 4-year birthday in August this year coming. So it's been a very interesting ride, and I love the fact that we're here at UKGE. Getting to surprise so many people who thought that the game had gone away.
Yeah. Because for the folks who don't know, NISEI is kind of like the I guess the fan-run expansion to the mainline Fantasy Flight that Netrunner is set.
Yes, yeah. Where they left the game behind, we just walked in and picked up and took off with the game. We're just about to release our 5th product this year, and all of the old FFG cards. But some of them have rotated out as FFG started themselves of the rotation cycle. We've just continued that. Every time we bring out some new product, another cycle disappears and another big box. But it's very much the same game.
It's nice to be able to revisit all the bits and pieces. I was very sad when Jackson Howard was no longer available.
Yes, well, he has his spiritual successor in the hands of the Spin Doctor.
Nice.
Who has similar effects, but works very differently.
Are there any kind of because one of the things that drew me to Netrunner was the kind of like cyberpunk style storytelling that you get with it. Is there anything else in the kind of world of cyberpunk and stuff that you particularly enjoy?
Pretty much most stuff cyberpunk, to be honest, I particularly enjoy. But if you're talking non-Netrunner stuff, I've particularly enjoyed the later William Gibson books. So while everyone loves Neuromancer and that whole the Sprawl trilogy, my favourite are the ones where it's getting closer and closer to like the modern day.
Sure.
Pattern recognition is, I think, an absolute work of art, and Idaru. Again,
I also really like
also
Idaru.
my favourite back in there. Yeah, for sure. I've also noticed. I don't know whether you'll have the stickers available for people who aren't at the events today, but I appreciate the exact and accurate layering of both transness and cyberpunk together.
Yes. So this is one of the things that's really important for a lot of people in NISEI, and we do sell them from our Redbubble store. The stickers they come in a larger format, but we do sell them. But yeah, so there's so many aspects that make cyberpunk. Like the idea of like having full autonomy over your body and being able to upgrade or change it as you need. That's an aspect that sometimes gets missed out of some cyberpunk storytelling.
We just gush about cyberpunk for the next 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
It's important for us that we properly represent the cyberpunk genre. So you will always see aspects of that. You will always see aspects of the power struggles between the haves and the have-nots. It's all too easy for some cyberpunk designers and storytellers to make the game more about there's a meme where someone's looking at a guy with a robot arm and a laser gun, and the point is going over his head, and he's just like, "Hey, cool robot arm."
Yeah.
And that's not the cyberpunk that we want to be. We want our cyberpunk to be the honest and brutal reflections of humanity, and where hyper-capitalism ends up, which is the path that we're going on.
No, hell yeah, for sure.
And like a lot of some media seems to represent it as being a good thing, and it's like, do you
concerning.
live in the real world? I mean, at that point, it is just capitalist propaganda, and that's not our jam.
No, it's rad that you've kept that spirit and heightened that spirit of it in the thing.
Yeah, we very much like to keep the punk in cyberpunk.
Nice. One last question. Favorite corp and favorite runner?
Favorite corp and favorite runner?
Inside baseball, I'm so sorry.
Is Jinteki. Specifically, my favorite is probably either Chronos Protocol or Tenin. I used to have a lot of fun with Tenin back in the day. It's not very successful, but My favourite faction for Runner is Shaper. I even have a Shaper tattoo.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But my favourite of the actual IDs is Alice.
Oh, sure.
Because she has very cool hair and she's great for blowing stuff up because I am an APOC player at heart.
Gotcha.
Put APOC in Anarch and I am happy as Larry.
For me, my favourite corp was NBN and Hopsicord Studios in particular.
Excellent choice. I've had a lot of fun with NBN, more in the NEH style, just like they got to go fast, just boom, 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 install those cards.
I just adored the fact that they had a set that explored broadcasting as a thing.
Yes.
Being the journalist that I am, what I wonder that layered in. But
yes,
then,
I mean, you won't be surprised to hear that the NBN identity in our first cycle was actually a games company.
Makes sense.
We were just like, so there's a lot of MMO references in there, not specifically FMOs, but just like showing that, like, how some people who are playing the game are effectively just cash cows for this big corporation because they're like a whale. And yeah, they're like just the very stuff that the games do to keep you playing every day. Just like, gotta log in, go do your daily quests. Which that's a card
and reflecting that mechanically.
Yes.
Cool. And then my favourite runner is Smoke from this.
Nice. Oh yeah, not exactly unsurprising again.
No, not surprising. Not surprising. And if people want to go and find NISEI and get the lowdown on how they can participate and get cards and all those bits and pieces, where should they go?
So if they're at UKGE, they need to come to 2907, which is where our booth is, or they can find us on nisei.net.
Marvellous, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I adore Netrunner. Oh, Netrunner is a game I like a lot, and is a game I am very, very, very fucking bad at. When Netrunner came out, God, like 2012, ages ago, billion years ago, I was really fascinated with it being a card game, a game specifically about exploring cyberpunk and asynchronous. An asymmetric, rather, card game in that one player plays as a corporation, one player plays as a runner, and the corporation is putting lots of cards face down and setting all these elaborate traps and puzzles. I want to say 2012. Maybe it's a little earlier than that, but it's at least a decade old. And then the runner is using all their tools to be keys to bust open these locks and break in and steal the agendas of the corporations. And as just mechanically as that, it's like, oh, it's an interesting game of cat and mouse, of puzzle setting and puzzle solving. Love all that. And then when you look at the cards themselves, and the cards inherently tell a story, and how they tell that story. Also, hi Valthek, hello. Yes, there is an older version designed by Wizards of the Coast. Yes, I guess I do mean the modern version by Fantasy Flight Games and not the 90s versions from WotC. I didn't play the WotC version. That was before my time of when I was interested in card games. Yes, no, you're right. Come and go, Tevin. I was technically incorrect. This game that we're talking about here, the NISEI, is the spiritual successor to the 2012 version of the game. Yes, adored that. Got really into it and bought lots of the cards and played. Not competitively, but played a lot, both in London and in Manchester. Never really got super in, because a lot of the people at the time, because the cards were still being released, a lot of the people who were playing were quite competitive. And I was playing during a time where I didn't have many in real life friends in Manchester. And I found it very difficult emotionally to lose a lot. I don't think I'm necessarily a salty person, but it feels some type of way where you go somewhere you don't know that many people, and then you just go and get your ass kicked there, and it's like, well, I guess you don't want me here then. And that's not what they mean. They're just playing to win because this is a competitive game, but you can get in your head about it. Actually, Ashley is a friend a very good friend who I made there, who she works in tabletop RPG, like proofreading, proof editing, and sub-editing stuff. So I did make very cool friends out of the hobby, but I kind of stepped away from it when I realized that playing it competitively wasn't for me. And then by the time I'd stopped playing, Project NISEI had kind of set itself up, and I hadn't really engaged with any of these cards. They don't normally do official publishing. They make all the cards free for you to go and print yourself. If you're familiar with the idea of printing proxies for stuff like trading card games like Magic the Gathering, this is a very similar entity of being able to print cards that you can then use and play. You sent somebody talking about Netrunner and he did the summons. Excellent, fantastic. I'm glad you could heed the call. I'm glad there are so many people that enjoy Netrunner as a thing. I would love to actually have a deck of the old Netrunner, like a playable Corp and Runner deck of that, just to have as an oddity. But I have a feeling kind of getting a full functional deck of that now would be actually quite expensive to obtain. There's been a side conversation going on in chat. Let me go and scroll back through that. I love when people complain about Cyberpunk being quote unquote becoming woke on Twitter, and William Gibson himself is like, listen here, you little shit. Yeah. No, exactly. It was always the people who forget about the punk in Cyberpunk, I don't really have any patience for. In fact, we were talking a little bit earlier about cryptocurrency, and a lot of people who are into cryptocurrency kind of frame themselves as being really cyberpunk, but what they are doing is so inherently corpo and capitalist, unavoidably so, and they've kind of fooled themselves into thinking it's not, and it's very funny to me. In fact, there is a Bitcoin card in Netrunner called Too Good to Be True. So even back in 2012, they knew what was up. They even knew what was up back then. If you knew, you knew. There was an older version designed by Richard Garfield and produced by Wizards of the Coast, the 90s version of Netrunner. And then following on from talking about people who were wrong, saying that cyberpunk as a genre got woke, Come and Go to Heaven says, right, the Star Trek complainers are the ones that are just absolutely baffling. For sure. No, it's absolutely fine. All that is a very relevant addition to the conversation. This is just an opportunity to talk about how much we all love cyberpunk as a genre. But it's also an opportunity to show the cards that I got here, because I did actually get 2 boxes of cards. So there is essentially, if you don't have any Netrunner cards at all, there is a NISEI starter box that's in like brown that has a whole bunch of reprints from the original game. And I think that box is all the legal reprints from the original cards. So if you don't have any Netrunner cards at all, you can get that box and then already have cards that are competitively viable for one and legal to play if you want to get more, and you can play with that set of cards right out of the box. And these are new cards that were designed. Yes, really, really impressive that they kept it all going. Really, really impressive. I don't actually know how many like original designers are involved in the new cards. It'd be really interesting to go and find that out, whether there was like absolutely zero transfer from the people who were working on the card game back when Fantasy Flight owned it to now. It'd be nice if there was some kind of through line, because, you know, the design intents are obviously going to be really different between those two eras, right? So it'd be nice to see if there's any kind of like a connecting vibe, connecting overlap. There are going to be a lot of cards here, so we're not going to go through them all, but we're going to go and have a look at it. Find a few friends and rope them into the game so you can get cheaper print costs. Yes, you can split the cost between you all. I remember both me and a friend bought core boxes of the Fantasy Flight Netrunner, and then later down the line we split the cost on buying a second core box that we could split between ourselves to get the remaining cards that it gave us only like 2 ofs and 1 ofs in that starter box. So we have kind of like reminder cards of how to play. We have like different faction cards. These are all the runner cards, so these are all the things that if you're the hacker, you have. And usually, and this is something that was definitely in the Fantasy Flight Netrunner cards and seemed to be reflected here quite strongly, is that the cards are very good at telling a story inherently. So for example, both the name of the card, what's going on in the art, the mechanics, and the flavor text all kind of work pretty clearly in harmony to tell a pretty solid plot beat about what you're supposed to be doing. And I find that really, really nice. My favorite cards in the OG Fantasy Flight was when they were not necessarily trying to tell the standard stories of hacker in a modern city breaking into a corporation in a modern city and that kind of cat and mouse play. They explored other parts of the world. There was an entire cycle of cards set in South Asia, which was really fascinating because, you know, the lens of which cyberpunk is refracted, bends, changes slightly with the local culture. And the local culture of South Asia is so different to East Asia, like Japan, and very, very different to the West in the UK and the US. So trying to think of what cyberpunk is like in a different part of the world is something really cool. They took a lot of time in trying to actually represent that really well. The diversity in those cards were also really, really good, and hopefully something that's reflected here as well, is that they had a really wide range of like races, genders, and sexualities across all the cards, both corporate and runner, which was really cool, and really reflecting of, I think, a modern cyberpunk environment, right? But there was also an expansion, a booster pack called New Hollywood, which was specifically just only about the entertainment and filmmaking industry and how cyberpunk and capitalism can affect the way that art is produced and sold. So cool. I would never expect any other property to care about that when it could be about guns or car chases, right? So the idea that they were taking the time to go and tell stories about such unique experiences like that were really, really, really cool. But yeah, just kind of flicking through these. We've got reprints of like Sure Gamble, which is just a staple money earning card. Let's go and see about the NBN cards in here. So these are corporation cards. We have Hasbiroid, HB, who are all about making androids. We have Jinteki, who are all about clones. This Wayland or Neutron? It's Neutral. Oh, flicking through these. We have the Wayland Consortium, who are just a gigantic conglomerate who earn a large amount of money and spend a large amount of money to do ridiculous things. They are also about just killing you and making you disappear by murdering you rather than any other way. And then there is, is there any of the, we have the NBN cards. NBN stands for a handful of different things, but it's essentially a broadcasting network, and they are all in the lens of entertainment in what they're doing, but also in terms of big data and using surveillance and using data maliciously to do things to you and about you, which I think is really cool and super relevant. I think the fact that NBN exists as a faction, a corporation in Netrunner, is such a really strong example of this being modern cyberpunk, or what cyberpunk is to the modern age. Because big data is super important in how we reflect ourselves and how we conduct ourselves in the modern environment, and people don't really think about how that is scary, as opposed to, oh, this robot could murder me. And it's like, that's probably not how a corporation is going to fuck you over, compared to the many other ways by the fact that you use Netflix to watch Black Mirror will fuck you over. Star Trek is near and dear to my queer little heart as a fan because of Jadzia Dax making me realize a few things about myself as a 14-year-old. So yeah, I just like to laugh and laugh and laugh at people who complain about that now. Yes, sure, I understand. I've never watched a Star Trek episode in my life. I'm so sorry, but I definitely understand how sci-fi and cyberpunk can be very instrumental to realizing things about one's identity, for sure. I love the 3 off-group identities that they released. Yes. There were 3 bonus runner factions who are a Bioroid who has escaped and is breaking their own pseudo Asimov laws of robotics to be able to do things that they otherwise shouldn't. There is Sunny who works, Bioroid is Adam. Sunny, who works in like infosec and pen testing. So she's kind of technically still working for a corp, and she's using her skills to be able to break into servers to be like, well, these are the ways that your server is like a little weak and inferior. But I think also in her storyline, she does that job, and then as she learns things by breaking into the companies that she's paid to do for, realizes that, oh man, these people are fucked. And then there is Apex, who is just a virus that wants to consume and spread and destroy. Apex is very difficult to use, but I think quite popular. Also, Sunny LeBeau, the pen testing security operator, is also canonically a lesbian. You wish that Apex had been good. I mean, that kind of eldritch horror is definitely your vibe, Tom. Not necessarily for me, but yeah. They're really, really interesting. I don't know whether. Oops, excuse me. I don't know whether those 3 sub factions got any support in NISEI. It'd be kind of neat if they wrote some additional new directives for Adam. Because you pick, for Adam has this special rule where you pick these 3 directives that are on your playing field when the game starts that changes the rules for you, and then you can spend money to break them and you no longer have that rule apply to you anymore. And it gave you 3. I think he gave you 4, so you had the option of not using one. And there was one additional bonus one that they introduced down the line. And I also got these 2 stickers from them. A Shaper transhumanist sticker and an NBN you are not immune to propaganda sticker, both of which are fucking excellent. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to finding a way to being able to play these and reintegrating my existing collection. I do actually have 2 runner decks and 2 corp decks that are already built, and they're probably no longer legal because a whole bunch of cards have rotated out. But it'd be nice to kind of get those going again. It'd be nice to play those again. Anyway, let's bring this back. Yeah. Next. Crooked Dice.
I'm Callum France. I'm here on behalf of Crooked Dice. I'm a former Edge Hill alumni. I worked developing some products for Crooked Dice, and through that experience, I now work in the industry. Yeah, so that's me.
And the game that you're demoing, that you've got on here, 7TV?
Yes, it is. Yes, so I'm demoing 7TV Fantasy today, which is their latest big box set, and it's been really exciting showing it to people here. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's a really, really wide range of like war games out there, and each kind of like sticks to kind of different approaches. We've got our kind of historical stuff, and we've got the Warhammer style thing, but 7TV is pretty unique in terms of what it's trying to do.
It is. Its IP is that we are trying to create classic TV. So it's obviously in the name 7TV. When we're playing, we're not just trying to kill other models. We're creating the best TV show or the best movie that we can. It's like almost like a combined effort. So a lot of players, and it's almost, it influences the fan base. They will try and do the coolest thing possible, and I think that takes it back to its original RPG roots. It's really nice to see when we do the tournament days. I ref some of those as well, just to see like, I'm not going to do that yet because I think it'd be more cinematic if I wait till like the final turn before I flip around and shoot you in the face. So, do you know what I mean? It's got that kind of.
I really like that it's got tournament play, but people are still doing it for the drama.
Exactly. Nobody really tries to win. They want the most fun that they can get. And I play Warhammer, and a lot of that is you're just playing to win. Whereas this is you're playing to have fun, and that's been the greatest joy I think of the design team, creating rules that are fun. That you can think, it's gonna be really fun when someone pulls out, the super electro death ray, and there's that kind
Sweep
of joy.
up as quickly as yeah. In terms of like, because obviously a really wide genre of like action TV, what genre of action TV within the realms of 7TV is your favorite?
My favorite.
And then also, which one you haven't done yet would you like to see in 7TV?
Now, to be honest, the favorite, I worked on Pulp, and I kind of did a bit of editorial work for Fantasy, but I think I have to give it to Pulp. I didn't realise just how influential Pulp had been on modern television. Star Wars is, it's just Pulp era evolved. The episodic serials of the Clone Wars. So I think I really enjoyed discovering the roots of that, and I think we really got the flavour of it down in that box. I know from having experienced and playtested it. What we haven't done so far, I think you probably hit the nail on the head there. I'm really looking forward to what's covered in Colony 87. Kind of modern, it's a future look. But a different kind of take, not necessarily the traditional sci-fi approach. I'm more almost like what the 80s and 90s thought the future would look like. I'm really excited for what that could bring.
90s future and Y2K future are absolutely fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. They're just different, aren't they? And you see that it reflected in modern media. So I think taking that influence, because we see a lot of that post Y2K future is influenced a lot of sci-fi. But I think there's a market now, there's an interest now for retro, looking back. Do you know what I mean? It's a nostalgia, I suppose, of that format of stuff. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. And if people want to go and find 7TV and more information about where they can find that out, where can they go?
They can go to crooked-dice.co.uk, or they can check out our YouTube channel as well. We've got plays, how to plays. We usually do trailers and stuff on there for upcoming expansions. We do like a nice little cinematic thing, try and tie it into the concept of it. You can also find us on Facebook at 7TV Productions. It's like our local community, which we kind of moderate, but it's a really free, really welcoming community to engage with whatever you want to play, any kind of scenario, any cast. You can pitch the idea and someone will find models for you, or they're not necessarily our models, they could be any range.
That's mini agnostic.
Yes, sorry, I should make that clear. 7TV is miniatures agnostic. You don't have to use our miniatures. We offer a beautifully crafted range of them, but you can bring whatever you'd like to it. That's the beauty of it. You can play whatever TV show. If you've got the Fellowship of the Ring, we've already got models from Games Workshop, which are really nice. You can play that with 7TV Fantasy.
Nice. Oh, thank you very much.
No, it's been my pleasure.
7TV is very, very interesting to me. Very, very interesting to me. As I said earlier on in the stream, I have gotten into miniature gaming in the last couple of years. I've been playing Marvel Crisis Protocol with my boyfriend, and I've been enjoying it. And it is quite simple to learn, so I don't mind. It's been easy enough for me to kind of get into that game because it's not too complicated to learn. And there's a lot of other miniature war games that are quite complicated. I would love to go and give I would love to give Necromunda a proper whirl mechanically, but there are so many rule books for that game, and it's really unclear how many of them I need, and all of those books are really expensive. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to go and get into the wider realm of miniature war games. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if my brain can handle that shit. But I really like that this game, even though it is a miniature war game, is actually also technically a tabletop RPG where you're using the mechanics of the game to tell a story and push a story along. And in fact, prior to this, because I'd heard of this game before, had looked up one of the kind of like flicking through the 7TV Fantasy book, which is the most recent one. And the rules of the game and like the character information are essentially framed as like TV style guides. Like if you were putting together a TV show and you had like a rules bible, like a setting bible, they're framed like that. The kind of character archetypes are archetypes. So if your character was a heroic archer, there is a heroic archer card that gives you the like mechanical gubbins for that character, but you are playing whatever on top of that. So that could be Legolas as much as it is Robin Hood. The interesting thing about 7TV, in addition to that, is that it is all, as they kind of alluded to, specifically retro TV. Their like first box of their current edition of it was called Inch High Spy-Fi. So it's specifically about trying to tell back in the day James Bond style stories. And then there's like a apocalypse war movie stuff, and there's like horror stuff. There's like a pulp, like an Indiana Jones, that the person who was speaking to, that he worked on, and then most recently fantasy, but they're all like period, right? Which is quite interesting because I guess this type of TV is less common now. You wouldn't necessarily be, you might be able to simulate Game of Thrones within the 7TV fantasy kit, maybe. But this style of like action TV is less common now, maybe. But that kind of reflects in the sculpts and designs as well. The sculpts that they sell, this is a mini agnostic game, as they said. But the sculpts that they sell are very British, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've ever seen like British-made pewter models or like metal models, metal minis, but they are really different in style to American sculpted stuff. And I actually did buy a set. I did buy a set that I figured I would be able to use in multiple things, so I can show you. So these are the a set of street punks that I got, and they are a set of kind of, metal minis that I feel I could both use and kit bash. But with it being period, it also means that the character designs are a little period as well. So in being accurate to, say, spy characters, both the heroes, the villains, the villainesses, the robots that would appear in, say, like a Buck Rogers style thing, the kind of like era of like Boobarella sci-fi. They have lots of minis that represent that, and that's not necessarily my jam. It feels very of its time, but the fact that they're leaning into that for the accuracy is definitely going to be a big appeal to some. But it's mini agnostic, so if that style isn't your vibe, then you can use any minis that you have to kind of like build in. My sibling actually got me some old GW pewters when they were in Nottingham a couple of years back. Yeah, you know the style of those sculpts then. Yeah. Very, very much of those kind of sort of... Villainessia would be a great cheesy name, for sure. But yes, you bring up a really good point, Come and Go Tevin. But aside from tokusatsu, we don't really get those. What I would adore of like a 7 TV, because like I'm really fascinated by the rule set and the blending of tabletop RPG and playing for the drama, but my heart of, or my love of TV isn't in necessarily the genres that they have so far. You know, I like my modern era settings. I like my 20 minutes into the future. I like my urban fantasy style settings, which none of those existing ones really quite cover. But oh my god, if they did a 7 TV 90s 2000s anime set, you know, if we could do like a Sailor Moon plotline, if we could do like a 90s Power Rangers plotline in this, where there's maybe a transformation mechanic, so you can switch your mini with a different one with a different power set as you're going from your human to your powered form, or the make my monster grow kind of thing that a lot of those kind of like shows had, or even if they had like the side a kid and his ex style rules, where, you know, you're like Medabots and your Pokemon, where the rules of these two being teamed up. I would love that. I would love that so much. That would be the only miniature war game that I would play. And I think 7TV could do that. I don't think they're necessarily interested so far in necessarily doing that kind of thing. At the time, I'd already bought so much stuff at the con, I was not in a position to go and spend, I think, these 60 quid. Also, to go buy one of their rules boxes, that might have to be a future paycheck kind of one, and I might have to go and like go to their community and be like, hey, I'm really interested in. Can I do want to open this actually. Give me a second to go get some scissors. They're in arm's reach. I just needed to take my headphones off to go get them. Right. I may well have to go to their community and just be like, hey, I love this, but I am a picky bitch, and there's a specific thing that I would like to do. Can this game do that? And if it can, what's the best way of me making that happen? And see if they can actually make my tokusatsu like anime skirmish dreams come true. Because there isn't really an anime skirmish game at all, aside from like Anima Tactics, and that game is long dead, and you cannot really get the minis for that anymore. So finding a modern one of doing those kind of things would genuinely make my day. I would love that. So I just wanted to open the box so we can kind of like show what these look like up close. So we have this lady with the crop top, and she's got the baseball bat behind her, very Sukeban style punk, very biker. We have this guy who is very Back to the Future, I think. And they're all wearing the same kind of style. Oh, Magical Girl Sentai sounds awesome. Oh, no, you'd want a system that would be able to handle all of those bits and pieces together, ideally, so you can tell the wide variety of stories. Because they all run different story beats, even if they're not necessarily the same exact fine-tuned genre. You would definitely be leaning more shonen if you were representing this as a thing. But yeah, I like this guy gives me very Back to the Future vibes. Maybe it's the boots. They all have this quilted jacket, which is quite cool. That's quite trendy. I would love a quilted jacket like that. We have this guy. He's just easy leaning. I like that the sample artwork made this character a black guy. You'd be surprised at how few pre-painted minis they remember that there is a wide variety of skin tones that characters can be. And this one actually has a mic. She actually has a microphone. So we have 2 guys, 2 gals. Relic Knights. If you get it on the card, nobody can complain because it's official. Nathan Blades, PPG, professional picky bitch. Yes. I think his everything gives those Back to the Future vibes. Yeah. I think these 4 are really fun. They I think they take paint and be completed quite well, but I do wonder if there is something in the realms of kit bashing that I can do to at least one of these guys to make them my own. I do really like these 4. I will definitely be using them among my other cyberpunk minis. I kind of just generally collect like street level cyberpunk minis, so not the people who are super heavily armored but have like, you know, just street level accoutrement, especially if it's street level fashion, and then you can kind of use them for a wider variety of things. I find that quite interesting. Want to play a beat 'em up on SNES, get some Final Fight, get some Turtles in Time going. Yeah. No, yes, I would love something that would in the same way that we've got the 7TV channels that 40s style or that 70s spy style. I would love something that channeled like a 90s 2000s kind of like anime action style. I would love that. But yeah, 7TV seems really interesting. We'll see. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on the stuff that they're doing and making. They've said that their next set is going to be a sci-fi set anyway, and that's going to be touching on some Y2K. Maybe not necessarily what I have in my own head, but there might be that link in between. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Anyway. Boop. I think we're almost done with our interviews. Moonstone. Yes. Where are they? Here they are.
I'm here just at the tail end of the con, but being able to speak to one last person.
This is the last one I did,
game.
yes.
You could introduce yourself and your game, please.
I am Tom Greenway, the game is Moonstone, and my company is Goblin King Games.
Whoops. Yeah, it's so nice to see such a really broad range of miniatures games. When you're kind of like me, who's only on the edge of it, you mostly know just Games Workshop stuff. So it's really this kind of like whimsical dark fantasy of Moonstone is really interesting.
Yeah, I was very inspired by films like The Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, the work of Brian Froud and Paul Bonner. That kind of has a very nostalgic storybook kind of vibe to the art style that we've gone for. So,
and tell me about the kind of like different factions that the.
We have got our Commonwealth, which obviously I'll try and describe in audio as best as I can. If you imagine Renaissance puffy sleeves, floppy hats, you know, ridiculously large boots.
Foppish, yes.
Yeah. Very quaint and quirky in that style. We've got our gnomes, which are the big noses and the big ears and the lovely cuddly family kind of vibes that they have, and the grumpy old ladies who's going to smack you with the frying pan kind of vibes with them, and the short-sighted milk bottle glasses for our crack shot crossbow gnome.
Excellent.
So it's all very tongue-in-cheek. Our Dominion faction is made up of our fairies and our goblins.
The fairies are definitely my favourites of the set.
They are lovely, aren't they? I've not seen very many other ranges which have
that kind of approach. Yeah.
We wanted them to be quite nasty and insect-like because Moonstone's all about that balance of light and dark and sugar
and spice as it goes. Yeah.
The fairies can be portrayed in some
These are
lovely.
beautiful, but also gritty.
Yeah, these have got a nasty side to them.
And I think that definitely carries in the sculpts as well. I'm looking. I bought one of the fairy sets, and I'm going to look forward to being able to play those, paint those in the future. But yeah, if people would want to be able to find you on the internet and your stuff, where shall they go?
Yeah, moonstonethegame.com, and you can also find us on Facebook/MoonstoneTheGame. On Instagram, it's at Goblin King Games, which is our company, and we're on Twitter at Moonstone Game. So there's no the in Twitter, but all the
You
other
can
stuff.
find them absolutely everywhere. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Moonstone, Wales-based, this game. It's funny. The world of tabletop RPGs, at least in terms of stuff like actual play, is so American, but when it comes to miniature games, it's so British, which is really nice. I mean, it makes sense since Warhammer is the largest miniatures property, and that's UK based, so it's going to be diverting a lot of the attention to other UK based creators. But it's actually really unusual for me to be able to connect with people who are interested in a hobby that I'm interested in just in person without it having to be via the internet. And I'm so excited that there are so many indie publishers also based in the UK who are making games. That's really, really cool. Moonstone would normally be really outside of my own interest and aesthetic. It has a little bit of the slapstick whimsy that I tend to bounce off against in tabletop, but the fairy models are so cool, so cool. And really interesting. They do this nice blend of pretty and goofy and insectoid, and the insectoid stuff is really, really nice. When I've been kind of taking part in Dungeons and Dragons, Feywild stuff, what I've really liked is the horrible beauty that you can do in that. It's glittery, but it's body horror, that kind of thing. And I think the Moonstone sculpts for the fairy group really do manage that. Let me reveal. Yes, I have one of the boxes. Even on the Saturday, they'd already sold out of a bunch of things, but I was able to get one of the boxes that I quite liked. And these have these 3 sculpts on the back. Online, it makes it feel that these minis are actually huge. They're not. They're actually 28mm scale. They're actually a little on the tiny side. We're gonna go open this box. It got a little bit squished in the adventure back, but we're gonna see. Oh, it comes in a little foam sandwich, so they're not getting damaged. That's good. Ooh, big foam. There they are. Oh, they're on sprue. Okay, cool. I think they're resin minis, so I can't use my plastic cement to go and put these together. But yeah. So we have the base of this spellcaster lady. You can see that she has the kind of insectoid legs to her and stands on this very grisly looking base. But also, where are her wings? She gets these huge wings, which I think would be really, really fun to go and paint in those technical duochrome paints. Those would be really, really pretty. We have this assassin poisoner character as well, who's standing on scenery. I'm not usually one for the standing on scenery, but yeah, they're really pretty. Really, really pretty, and really helps sell the character of it as well. And then we have a surprisingly, compared to those two, Fey edgelords, a surprisingly goofy character for the third. Foxglove, who comes in lots of bits, actually, but you can kind of see Foxglove's head behind, so you can kind of see it. And talking to the designer, actually, because I was kind of talking about how the character sculpts for the fairies were really, really interesting. And he was telling me about the lore of one of the goblin characters who took some fey magic to try and become beautiful, and then turned into like a big giant inflatable like toad thing, and then was all like, lamenting the fact that they had managed to like use magic to disfigure themselves, but it turned out to be almost like a magical chrysalis, and then they became a goblin fairy on the other side with the big beautiful wings. And I was like, it turns out that after you're done transitioning, you're much more peace with yourself and happier. And then he was like, actually some of the characters, specifically Foxglove specifically as a character, is gender fluid and changes their visual representation very frequently. There's only the one sculpt of them now, but Moonstone are in the habit of doing alternate sculpts for characters. So on the cards is potentially a femme version of that Fae design, and I'm like, that's great, I love this. It's metaphors in my miniature game, and I was kidding about that metaphor, and they're like, no, actually there is some genuine kind of queer representation within this whimsical, slightly silly on purpose miniatures game. And I'm like, that's really cool. I'm really glad that they took the time to think about that. Mechanically, it's a card based rather than dice rolling game. It does a really interesting thing where when you are in combat, you select in a very rock, paper, scissors style what type of attack that you're doing, whether you're attacking high, whether you're attacking low, whether you're blocking high, whether you're blocking low, whether you're doing a piercing attack. And depending on what the two people choose will decide what kind of damage is done. And in fact, if you swing high and then the opponent does like a counter low uppercut, then instead of you dealing damage, you will take damage instead. It has that kind of mind gamesing around it. So rather than using dice, it uses that level of mind games and a slight level of card randomization for doing other tasks. For the conflict resolution, which is really interesting and I think actually pretty easy to learn. So yeah, this game is super interesting. This game is super interesting. As I understand, you are able to play the game by buying one of the sets of 3, and the 3 minis you get in it, plus like the basic rules, are enough to get you up and going. But yeah, I think this game is really interesting looking if you were looking for an alternative fantasy style thing to play. I'm definitely going to be painting these anyway, just to have. I think Fae style creatures are my thematic exception for the types of minis that I like to collect. So I was very pleased to get hold of those. Cool. Whoop. What do we have next? Oh yes, we have our a couple of our interviews. Did I miss one? Hold on a second. Before we get into this, I need to check if I've missed one, because there should be an image here that there should be a tabletop RPG designer that we haven't seen, and I'm surprised that it's not in the list. It's not in the list. That's incorrect. Hold on. Did I not? Oh no, I didn't save a picture for them. Okay. Well, that's okay. I did the work. I did the work to make the artwork and then didn't fucking apparently render it. Goddamn Photoshop, you've betrayed me for the last time. That's okay. That's okay. We will do it this way. We'll do it this way. Sorry to Stoat Games for having to do it this way. Me being very unprofessional. Here we go. Big. Scroll it down. So, yeah, not quite as professional as intended, but that is okay. We're going to be clipping these up to put to like YouTube and stuff like that after the fact, so it's okay that I didn't do it perfectly because nobody will know. Nobody will know. Shh. Okay, and then I need to get this on the right layer, otherwise the waveform isn't going to show up. Thank you for being patient while in this trying time. I thought I had everybody. I've been defeated by my own hubris. Okay. Cool. Stoat Games.
Hello, I'm Stoat Press. I am a queer and disabled game maker who lives in Edinburgh, and I'm just making cool entry-level games. I want everyone to play games.
As said, we've met a couple of times. I appeared on a stream panel of yours previously about involving history within the realm of tabletop RPGs. I met you last at Thought Bubble, my other favorite con. I really like this one, but Thought Bubble is also great.
Thought Bubble is it's like this badly kept secret where it feels really small and exclusive, but it's also such a welcoming, lovely event, and everyone should know about it, but no one should know about it, but everyone should know about it.
And tell us about some of the games that you have available today.
So I'm so excited to talk about Apothecaria, which is like Apothecaria but with a paw, because it's all animals. It's set in the Beast Fables universe, and you are a tiny animal on a large road trip across Scotland in a post-human future where there are no humans. Animals have inherited the earth, and you're making potions in exchange for food and shelter on your journey.
That pairs really interestingly with Scurry, where you're also playing an animal.
Yes. So Scurry is sort of like the sister game, if that makes sense, where you're a pack of animals on a fast-paced heist, and you've got to finish your mission before the time runs out.
Do you feel that there is a difference in the type of role-playing when you're playing as a regular human versus when you're playing like an animal, a tiny little creature?
I feel like there is, but role-playing and storytelling is one of humanity's oldest traditions, and animal fables are also, we have been associating ourselves with animals and the qualities we see in them for millennia. So honestly, I feel like it's a different form of role-playing, but it's not a new form of role-playing. It's as old as humans itself.
Nice. And if people want to be able to find you and your work, where can they go to go check that out?
On all social media, we're just Stoat Press, all one word, and our website is stoutstoat.co.uk.
Marvelous, thank you very much.
Yes. These are creators that I have met more than once at various events. Thought Bubble is another. Thought Bubble is an event for illustrators and comic artists, and that has increasingly had a lot of presence from tabletop RPG designers, because they'll be printing their rule sets and usually have custom art. The kind of a fandom of appreciating indie press and appreciating kind of Dungeons and Dragons supplements is actually pretty heavy overlap. So a lot of tabletop RPG people have been eating good at the likes of Thought Bubble, and it's possibly my favorite con. But Stoat have a background in specifically looking at the United Kingdom regional history, so not just England but Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland as well, and reflecting that history in indie RPGs, very, very polished indie RPGs as well, full color, big polish. And this stream is really making the rule sets I haven't published yet loom over me. I mean, you gotta get them out there, even if it's just kind of going to a zine doing vanity publishing. I have a game release that I just went to Mixam and printed 100 copies of and have sold most of, but I still have a couple of physical copies left. But these are really, really high quality prints. Actually, these are proper bound books. Not ISBN though, they don't have barcodes on them, so they still count as zines, but they're very, very high quality. I did actually, we didn't talk about it in the interview, but I do have one of their games here with me, so I can show you. No name, very mysterious, but it is Vice and Virtue, as it says on the name here. It is a supplementary rule set that uses oracle cards as conflict resolution. So it comes with a a set of oracle cards with various themes, both kind of like positive and negative themes depending on which way up you draw the card. So oracle decks are essentially tarot, but without the history and symbology of tarot. They use the randomized nature of cards to do storytelling or theoretically fortune telling, but with its own custom iconography. So it's using the kind of like aesthetics of tarot to do storytelling here, and the type of like storytelling / fortune telling you're doing within Vice and Virtue is specifically system agnostic. So you can go and play this as a supplemental thing in any games you already have going. So you could, for example, have a fortune teller character in your D&D campaign, be in a position to go and do readings here, and then it gives you a whole bunch of how to do the spreads and examples of play, and how you can kind of create your own spreads and interpretations of the cards therein. So it's a way of doing kind of like a miniature kind of like fortune telling reading. You can have all the aesthetics of tarot without having to go and memorize like 50, 60 odd cards, which I'm sure many people would prefer to not to do. For sure. Right. The art is very pretty. As I say, Stoat Games. Stoat Press, rather, if you would like to go and Google them. Stoat Press are very high quality in terms of their artwork and publishing. Anyway, we're moving on to the last couple of... it's probably faster for me to go this way. Okay. Our last couple of interviews that we did. Excuse me. Yes. I was very lucky to not just run into the people who were exhibiting and on stand, but also a couple of other creators at the event who are like me, who are also kind of doing YouTube and Twitch content around the world of tabletop games. And Dave's Mini Menagerie is but one of them. All right. So I have been graced by getting to actually interview a fellow content creator, in addition to the various games creators we've spoken today. How about you introduce yourself and the stuff you do?
Hey, I'm Dave, and I run the Dave's Mini Menagerie YouTube channel, and I create hobby videos for tabletop gaming, but predominantly about the Malifaux game and all the hobby stuff related to that, so painting and assembling and cool things like that.
Malifaux is a really impressive mini range to be into building and painting, actually. I've built just one kit of that, and I had to glue separate sides of 1 foot together as part of the step. It's like pretty intense.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a reputation as being pretty extreme for assembly, so it does scare people a little bit, but I like the assembly process, so I enjoy the challenge.
And we both know each other through a fellow YouTuber, like a Corner Case Deck, who are both part of his Discord. It's been really good to actually meet other people who do miniature hobby stuff that way.
Yeah, it's been really cool. There's so much tabletop stuff in there. It's good to see it not just through a computer screen.
So is miniature war games your main quadrant of tabletop that you're into?
Yeah. I've played some board games and tiny little bit of RPGs. Never really done card games at all, but it's the war games for me. But even that, it's mostly painting, to be honest. I haven't actually played that many games, but coming out of lockdown proper, I'm hoping to get some more games in.
I feel you. My partner got me into miniature painting, and in my head I'm kind of like, oh, but I want to use these as game pieces, but I am just going to buy the ones that I think are pretty and not think about what game they're from.
So in terms of like stalls and stuff that you've been eyeing up around here, what have you been looking at?
So I went to the Wayland Games stall, their big one, because they have Malifaux there. So I've been looking at all the Malifaux boxes there. And
I didn't think through the fact that we might be recording somewhere where there's just like live vacuuming, but this is an informal thing. I haven't arranged anything formal. It's all good. We'll navigate. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so that's cool. I also saw they have some of their new games out. They've got Wild West Exodus and Mythos, which looks sort of like a Eldritch horror type thing. So that was pretty cool. I also liked the TT Combat stall, because they have all their terrain, which they're best known for, but they also have Carnivale, which is a pretty cool game. It's like Renaissance, but I think a rift opened up to somewhere magical.
Eldritch horror and cults in period like Venice.
Yeah, it's all Venice. So it's a really interesting mix of Venetian Renaissance and then horrors and magical beasts.
Did you pick any of those bits and pieces up, or you just window shopping?
Just window shopping today. I've been trying to control myself. I've got too much of a backlog.
Oh, are you here for the whole weekend?
No, just today. But I have too many minis at home, so I'm trying not to buy any.
I see.
But,
I understand.
I mean, I did buy a few things, but
what'd you get? I need to know.
Nothing too interesting. Mainly tools. So I've just been buying. More assembly tools and magnets and things like that. I found the paintbrush stall, so I got a whole bunch of discount brushes.
Nice. I have less self-control, but y'all who are going to be listening to this in the future, there's going to be the whole video that goes part with this, so you'll see what I bought. But I was very sensible. Some of it is gifts for other people. Like it's nice. But yeah, no, it's great to meet other creators in person. If the people listening out there want to go find you, where can they go find you on the internet?
Just Dave's Mini Menagerie on YouTube. That's where I'm most active, basically, and I'm also on the Weird Discord, the Malifaux Discord, pretty actively, and also on the Corn Cases Discord, which is where we met.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
In a similar fashion to earlier, where we can see that these people are having a recording session. There's a microphone that's being proffered in this other person's direction. Let me vacuum next to them. That seems like a sensible thing to do and that they will enjoy. Great. Great. I'm glad that audio was still like parsable and not just useless garbage. Good God. Oh, but genuinely, super joy. Dave is super adorable. I love his work as well. The videos that he's been doing on YouTube. He's been doing more live streaming as of late, but is actually a really detailed painter. And as Come and Go to Heaven says, Malifaux minis, both to build and to paint, are a really fiddly and delicate process. Not all of their minis are fiddly and delicate, but a lot of the cool ones are, which does make it really impressive when I see any of those kind of like painted well. Makes sense to me, gotta have some of that sexy vacuum work in the background. Yeah. But it was, as I've said a couple of times, really joyful to be able to go and meet other people who are into this hobby and creating as part of this hobby. At an event like this, it's always nice to connect with other people, both designers and creators. And yeah, I strongly recommend you go, if you are into miniature painting YouTube, to go to Dave's Mini Menagerie. You see that description, that YouTube right there. You can go there. The finished pieces are painted on at daves.mini.menagerie as well, so you can go see the finished pieces there. To see very delicate Malifaux miniatures painted very well, for sure. We also were able to speak to one other influencer while we were around. Influencer, content creator. Just trying to share their art. Good vacuum work is hard to find. Jesus. But yeah, we also got to speak to Discourse Miniatures. Here we go.
I have been very lucky to meet multiple YouTubers today. Would you mind introducing yourself and all the fantastic things you do?
Sure. Hi, I'm Discourse Miniatures. I have a YouTube channel Discourse Miniatures, and I also cover miniature war games, especially a lot of the Games Workshop materials, but also a lot of other indie sort of war games as well.
I've mostly seen a lot of the old kind of like Warhammer bits and pieces, and the learning about how the industry works on that side of things, that you go into really good detail, which is really cool.
Thank you. Yes, I love covering the business side because I feel that it's not covered often enough on YouTube, you know, and I cover a lot of the sort of business decisions and things like that, and the sort of stock movements and stuff, and why miniatures are designed and sold in the way that they are.
So in terms of like other miniature games, what others have you been like scoping around here today?
Oh my god. So I was very arrogant. I came into the UK GE this year and I was like, you know what? I know all the miniature war games there are to know, and I have been humbled so much. Honestly, there is tons and tons and tons. I was just speaking with the creator of Moonstone, and it's an absolutely beautiful miniature game, incredibly whimsical. But aside from that, Parabellum have a really interesting game. Conquest, Last Argument of Kings has a very strong IP, although I think the prices are a little bit high, but it's an incredibly strong IP, so I'm really interested to see that. I got a demo game of that. It was very interesting. There's also War on Terra as well, I think it's called, which is a very interesting sort of more hard sci-fi miniature war game, which is very brave, I think, going up against Warhammer 40k. But it's nice to see more sci-fi games because it's a part of the hobby, part of the miniature war game. It's a setting that's not explored much because everyone is afraid of going up against Warhammer 40k, I think. So good luck to them.
And are there any other of the 4 quadrants of tabletop gaming that you've explored? Have you done tabletop RPGs or card games?
Oh, well, so secretly I am a huge TTRPG player. Absolutely massive TTRPG player. In fact, I used to be, before I started the YouTube channel and lost all of my time, I used to play in a game almost like twice a week. So in terms of my favorite games, I don't play too much of D&D, but I do play a ton of Call of Cthulhu is probably my favorite. So Call of Cthulhu, I'm a huge horror fan, like just generally speaking. So I love Call of Cthulhu. I'm also a big fan of like Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire the Requiem, just basically World of Darkness materials. I love that. And as well as that, actually, I'm going to be in an actual play soon of Zweihander, which is basically Warhammer Fantasy RPG, but with the kind of edges filed up, all the little IP bits filed up. That's going to be played with the component cast, they're called. It's going to be an actual play on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. my time, so that's UTC, I think.
Yeah. And if in general people want to be able to find you on the internet, where can they discover you and your work?
Well, it's Discourse Miniatures on YouTube. That's probably the best place to find me. That's the biggest platform. But I'm also on Twitter as well if you want to hear me say Indian things and go on rants occasionally. That's Discourse Minis. There is my handle.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you.
It's great to be able to meet multiple content creators. I think like Midwinter Minis was also at UKGE, if you know who that is. He's based in Colchester, does a lot of specifically Warhammer stuff. A lot of retro Hammer as of late. Who else was there? There were a few. It's interesting when somebody's on stall, they're already dedicatedly interested in talking about their work to you. But when other people, like content creators, are going around and they're just trying to shop, man. You don't want to interrupt them. But I was very fortunate to like run into Discourse separate to, and was kind of like, hey, if you've got a bit, I'll let you finish chatting to who you're chatting to, but I'd love to loop around and then have a chat with you as well. And she was very, very kind and was able to kind of take the time out to chat. And she's delightful to speak to in person. A lot of the videos that she does are specifically industry stuff, as said, especially about interesting vis-a-vis poor business practices done within Games Workshop, which is information I don't actually necessarily know a lot about, so it's quite interesting to kind of learn those new things. But she's never really talked about her interest in tabletop RPGs on that channel before, so it was actually a delight to hear. Always really neat to hear, when somebody does one specific type of content and you're like, hey, what other content do? Are you interested in? And they're interested in so much more that you never necessarily find out, mostly because the algorithm isn't interested in them doing more than just the one thing, you know what I mean? So it's really, really cool to kind of learn about the other stuff that she plays. And horror games as well. Very, very cool. I have not played Call of Cthulhu myself, but I did find out a little while ago that in the same way that Dungeons and Dragons is the most popular tabletop RPG in like the West, Call of Cthulhu is the most popular tabletop RPG in Japan, which is really fascinating to me. It's like, oh, what had to happen? What chain of events had to occur for that to kind of get the cultural hold on people's imagination over there? And it means that a lot of indie game dice systems in Japan, in the same way that we use D20s a lot, they use D10s. It's really, really strange. Yeah, no, Call of Cthulhu. If you like, it wouldn't mean much if you don't speak Japanese, but there are a number of tabletop RPG actual play channels on YouTube, and most of them play Call of Cthulhu or hacks of Call of Cthulhu. It's so strange, but really neat. It'd be in that kind of way, the fact that there has been slowly Japanese written games that are being translated into English, I would love to go and see more of those, just to go and see their other like perspectives on what game design is. Within that same breath, we'll talk about it, is apparently how they are much more of a fan of tightly told one-shots in a way that we would call railroading. There's a lot more kind of like video gamey kind of like nature to how scenarios and campaigns in Japanese RPGs are constructed, apparently, which is very interesting to me, especially since that blends really, really well with the perspective of actual play, which are really story-driven and really tightly paced. So I would love to see more Japanese RPGs translated into English so we can see how those are really, really paced. But yeah, Discourse Miniatures is super charming. Her if you don't know too much about the world of how the sausage is made in the world of miniature gaming, definitely go and check out her stuff. If you want to be yelled at, also go check out her stuff. She like me is very fond and able to project, and that carries in her videos quite a lot, very, very high energy. So please do go to youtube.com/Discourse Miniatures and check them out. Right, let's go, and I have one last interview, and then we're going to go and look at the other bits and pieces that we bought today. Eldritch Rach, who is, rather than being making like specific games or being like a Twitch or YouTube content creator, is an artist who works in the realm of tabletop RPGs. So she is heavily inspired by and has produced everything from patches to stickers to entire books about the relationship between kind of just tabletop nerdery and fantasy nerdery.
Hello, I'm Eldritch Rach, and I sell D&D and cryptid style merch, from sort of enamel pins, patches, sticker sheets, face masks, all sorts of little goodies.
Now we've been finding your bits and pieces. You've been at cons for time.
About 7 years now.
Yeah.
7 years.
In fact, I was very delighted because I'm wearing one of the face masks that you have.
It's so fashionable.
Yeah. The number of compliments I've been getting on the apparel.
Oh, bless
honestly, you know, this is what I across lockdown, I've probably worn this mask the most out of the rotation of the ones that I have.
Oh, bless you, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of the realms of like a tabletop RPG stuff, is it like Dungeons and Dragons is I think your focus,
Yeah,
right?
primarily Dungeons and Dragons. We are thinking of having a go at Monster of the Week this year, but generally it has just been D&D. I play some other board games like Wingspan and Abomination and Godzilla Clash of Tokyo, but yeah, D&D is the big sort of RPG one for me.
So in the kind of like, I've been running on the theory that you can largely, in the same way that in Avatar you can break down everything into the 4 elements, right?
Yeah.
In the realms of tabletop gaming, you can largely break everything down into combinations of board games, card games, miniature games, and tabletop RPGs.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
you're in the like tabletop board game quadrant.
Agreed, yeah. More in tabletops, I'd say, because I tend to I live on my own, so you know I don't get to
Yeah. Oh, being able to connect with others
Exactly.
and playing tabletops online is
Exactly.
what got me through.
Agreed. Like Roll20 got me through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thank you, Roll20, for existing.
And you mentioning that you were interested in like a Monster of the Week, that makes sense considering the kind of various cryptids and stuff that you have on offer at your store.
Exactly. It feels like a love letter to those sort of Monster of the Week shows like Buffy. And you can just go a bit, like, you don't have to use the monsters they provide, so you can be as horrendous or as nice to your players as you like.
Lots of fun in making up new monsters and giving your players the clues on how to handle them as they play.
Exactly.
If people want to go and find your wide variety of patches, stickers, badges, and very fashionable face masks, where can they go to find them?
The easiest way to find me is to go to my website, which is eldritchrach.com. That's eldritchrach.com.
Absolutely. Marvellous. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, no. Convention attendance is a very, very large part of my, I guess, recent nerd history. I mean, I've been going to stuff like MCM Comic-Con London since I was a teenager, but the like direct involvement in conventions, so appearing at stalls and selling merchandise, or like appearing in and running panels, is something that I've been doing increasingly in the last 7 years, and it's been really delightful to meet so many new people and so many new friends that way, and Rach is one of them. She's been at a lot of northern cons, and then this is in Birmingham, so she's made it to this one as well, and her stuff's really pretty. The D&D patches and enamel badges are really, really nice, as I say, and you can see I was wearing one of her face masks all day. I didn't know she was at this actually, so I was kind of like, oh my god. The face mask that I bought from you at the start of lockdown, I still wear, and it's still sick, and I still get compliments on it. Yeah, it's really neat how the kind of like, I guess, fandom of tabletop games has made its way into such a wide range of things, including the illustrators world. And it's kind of not a surprise because obviously in the actual play space, we often have to kind of turn to illustrators and artists for asset creation. I've managed to teach myself how to draw my own tabletop RPG portraits to an okay standard. I'm not great. I'm all right. But a lot of people, turn to illustrators like Rach to do commissions of like character portraits. Even if you're not necessarily streaming your game, to have artwork of your like D&D character to last in posterity is a very popular thing. So lots of illustrators and artists have been in a pretty symbiotic relationship with the kind of like tabletop gaming community. It's really great to see those communities thrive off each other. Yeah, I do great work. Oh, thank you. My production values and sense of aesthetics are very high, but I could still continue to improve as like an illustrator, of like being a good drawer person. I could always stand to be better, but we progress as we work on new things. But yeah. It was a delight to see Rach there. I need to actually go and hit up some of my other convention friends and say, I ran into Rach. She's doing well. Everybody's doing good. So glad that everybody's, surviving. Still, in real talk, still alive on the other side of these things, right? So many convention people, so many people who made their bank attending conventions and selling their wares had to work out what the fuck to do for 2 years when running conventions was just not possible, and then for a while not considered safe to do. And even UKGE were pretty light on their COVID policy. They were like, you can just kind of like do what you want, which was, pretty nerve-wracking for a lot of people. A lot of people who already were booked to go or were exhibiting had to kind of like step back as a result. I would have been attending this with my partner for the entire weekend, and it just turned out that neither of us really felt safe doing that, and so only I went on just Saturday. So, the people that are able to make it work, You know, the people who are able to make it work and still kind of show up to these things and still manage to actually do quite well. You know, we saw there have been multiple people, both Grant Howitt and Cobblepot Games, managed to sell out of lots of stuff. So it's great that it's been able to be lucrative for them and that the appetite is still there for tabletop stuff. You know, there's been a recent discussion I've been part of about how now that we are in a space where increasingly you can involve in your luxury hobbies in a digital format only, whether there is still a market and space for physical versions of those luxury hobbies. So that means like, hey, as I was saying to Rach, both of us got through lockdown by playing tabletop RPGs entirely just online. And we were in circumstances where we probably both had those digital rule sets already. But, you know, it's really easy to buy PDFs of rule sets. I quite like doing that because there was a position where I had very limited physical space, and I once threw my back out carrying rule books around London all day. So I was then disinclined to buy heavy rule books in the future just for the sake of my own spine if I was going to be taking them to places. So the fact that people still want to buy the physical books, buy the coffee table hardbacks, is still really interesting to me. In a space where we can now use Tabletop Simulator and STL files of miniatures to play miniature games digitally, do people still want to play physically anymore? And that's sometimes slightly disinclined by the costs of some physical games. But they're still out there. They're still making new stuff. People are still using 3D printing to make new stuff and play games that way. And it's really fascinating how that industry is going and how that will continue to grow and change as we move through that space. A couple of responses in chat. In response to UKGE's like COVID policy, that's certainly a choice they made. It's real weird to go to places when there's more than one person without a mask these days. Yeah. Not a lot of people are wearing masks out and about in my neck of the woods these days. I still do. Sometimes it just feels so exhausting. I'm just kind of like, well, I'm just out here. But it's been paying off because my job requires me to travel a lot more than it did previously. So being able to take those precautions and stay safe is actually really important for my both mental and physical well-being. Actually, when you have to take that many train journeys, you just get into the habit of wearing a mask and you wonder why other people don't. Word was a bad couple of years for makers who relied in-person places to make money, for sure. Weirdly, even when I'm playing online, I like having the physical book around because I can often find stuff faster in a physical copy for some reason. Yes, I definitely get that. Sometimes it's a desk space issue. I have a larger desk than I did previously, and even then, sometimes if I wanted to have like the proper like coffee table hardback, I'm like, I should probably have that digitally instead. But then it becomes a screen real estate of being able to fit all those bits and pieces in. Yeah. Oh, that is all the interviews. That's all the interviews we did. I hope you enjoyed. We're not done. We're still going to go through some of the bits and pieces I bought. But I hope you enjoyed those interviews. I definitely enjoyed recording them. And I look forward to, in the future, kind of doing more of this kind of thing at other events. I may well, at a Thought Bubble this year, do a bunch of interviews with other tabletop RPG creators and maybe do a similar thing near the end of the year. Thought Bubble is in November, so that's a way off, but you know. And actually, a piece of content that I want to do on stream more often now is to do one-on-one interviews again, long-form one-on-one interviews with other artists and creators. I would love to go and interview actual play people and talk about their design process and other tabletop creators, because I'd just like to explore that world a bit more. I have to put a TV tray up beside my desk to get some extra space. That comes the sacrifice of walking path. Yes, I have like a rolling trolley of all my, I have a rolling trolley of all my art supplies that I wheel up next to this desk when I'm working. Lifesaver being able to actually have that all there instead of on my desk. Anyway, showing off some of the other bits and pieces that we got. Let's go through all the miniatures stuff first because there's a lot of it. So Infinity are a very complicated tabletop RPG that I probably won't get into as a game, but do really interesting miniatures that are very anime or at least East Asian art inspired, but also very sci-fi. And they apparently do special editions at events. And I'm like, well, I don't want to turn down a special edition miniature. There's a lot of them, but this one seemed like the coolest for me, or the one that's the most vibe for me. Nits and Crit says, though I started streaming on a more regular basis because what I used to do for money was selling knitted items at the artist market and busking. So yeah, I lost 2 jobs because of the plague, and now everyone has to look at my dumb face on their computers. Limited edition Shikami, yes. Yeah. They were selling that at the event. They were selling a lot of different limited edition miniatures, actually. It's still all in pieces and all in metal, so this might be a bit of a bastard to construct. Actually, would have to do a lot of pinning to get it to work correctly. But I quite like the style of this. The bladed naginata is very cool. So that's one of the ones I grabbed. Let's slide that back in there. Okay. We have another piece of Malifaux. This horse rider. So I actually have a bunch of Malifaux pieces already, which is going to require me to go reach into the depths to go retrieve. Gosh, I have actually quite a few sheets of miniature bits and pieces now. Let's find this all accessible like a mutual. What? So there was, and I've shown the box on camera before, but I've constructed them all since, so I might as well show you them constructed. Please don't fall apart when I pull you out of here, because you're still partially attached by blue tack. Malifaux did like a special edition, like a... Oh, my frame rate has horrendously dropped for some reason. Apologies. Not that it's super important, but they did a cyberpunk range of miniatures that are quite interesting and super spindly. Putting her together, putting the legs together, specifically, the attachment points are tiny, teeny tiny, so annoying, but a very, very cool sculpt overall. And there's like a gang of like 5-6 pieces. But because of the way that Malifaux works, even though it's a gang of 6 pieces, which, you know, feels like it would be enough for a skirmish game, is actually not enough to play a regular gang of Malifaux. You need more pieces than that. So there's a tabletop community that I'm part of called Corner Case that has also got a YouTube channel, Corner Case on YouTube. I strongly recommend you go check them out. The owner, Deck, is doing lots of videos about how to get into Malifaux at the moment because it's his favorite game. And as a publisher, they don't talk about their game much, or they don't advertise their game in the same way that other larger miniature companies do. But he basically said, oh, actually, here's some pieces that you could just go buy, and then if you have them together, it's a functional team. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that, but I want them to still make sense with the special edition cyberpunk sculpts, because a lot of Malifaux is like steampunk inspired, like a very magical Magitech and steampunk inspired, and those run heavily at odds with the futuristic Malifaux 1988 set. So the mechanical rider is at the very least a unit that fits both mechanically and, if painted right, aesthetically with the other cyberpunk minis. Giving him, I really want to go and give this like a Eurasia Erasure style, like robot unicorn kind of paint job. What's the sprue of this like? The sprue isn't too bad. That chain is a bit fiddly looking. So yeah. This as sculpts go, or like constructions for Malifaux goes, it could be worse. This spear is too thin. There is no need for the spear to be that thin, and probably makes that like a very annoying to not break if this at some point in the future does break, I will just get a more sensible spear and glue it in the hand instead. But looks pretty reasonable. Probably stands quite tall since it's a 50mm base. So this is probably going to be quite a big mini, and most of my minis are much smaller than that. I quite like minis that are this scale, right? That are the 28 to 32mm scale. So 50mm is actually a little larger than what I would normally do. But apparently, getting this mechanical horse and some little metal robot fellas, and then I will have a functional gang. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get into Malifaux, but apparently there are rumblings of Malifaux being a bigger thing in my local kind of like miniature wargaming store. So if I have a functional gang that I can take and sensibly transport, then, you know, we'll see. Maybe that's the way that we get in. There was a group called Titan Forge. Titan Forge are mostly known for being a 3D printing service, 3D printing subscription service, but they do have versions of the models that you can purchase, and actually at a pretty good rate. These were £5 a pop. They were kind of arranged in a way that was quite difficult for me to kind of get in and look at each piece properly. And I didn't necessarily know what they had on offer. So it was a bit of a kind of like, okay, my knees are giving in. We're just going to be getting these two. But I quite like the designs of these two. This is held together by staples, but I should be able to pull them apart okay. Rip to my fingers if not. With enough pulling. Yeah, this pulls apart. That's fine. Shaking the table. Sorry. So we have this fella printed in resin as like one whole piece, so we don't need to construct any parts. We've got this very fabulous coat. I really like the aesthetic of the coat. These are all resin printed, yeah. But also, I realized that in my collection, I don't have that many like plus-sized minis. You know, it is a very, 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 very fine print. They did a very good job getting all that detail in, and I think it will take paint quite well. Like the way it's detailed will mean that kind of like edge highlighting these lightning bolts should be quite easy. But I don't have that many like plus-size sculpts in my sets, you know, partially because I tend to be quite reticent or disinterested in minis that play body types up for grossness, you know? If it's like, oh, they are a plus-size mini, but they're also just eating food, or the way that they're designed is that they're fat because that's gross, I'm not really a fan. And that actually whittles down the number of like plus-sized and fat characters you can have in a miniature space, honestly. And I'm like, this guy's clearly a villain and he's clearly like designed for excess, but he does genuinely look cool, right? His build is not played up to be gross. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm down for that. He could be part of my crew for a bit of like body type diversity. And then we also have this lad. This lad called V. I think he's called V specifically because he's a send up of the kind of like archetypes of characters you can get in Cyberpunk 2077. Very much an area of minis that could use some improvement. Yeah, no, for sure. So this character, I think, is specifically designed to look like the kind of character design you can get in like the Cyberpunk 2077. There's a bit of flash on these that I need to kind of like trim off and stuff, but it's not gonna be too much work. It's still very, very detailed. But I like his hairstyle. I like the kind of like, he's got a shaved head, but still has like some chunky dreads in the front. Surprisingly black coded. And his cool shoes. I really like the high tops. I'm always a fan of high top trainers. In terms of trainers, I only wear high top trainers or smart shoes. So when minis have them, I'm like, yeah, good. And interestingly enough, his backpack, which is like fine, but there is a backpack bit that I obtained a little while ago that has like, it's supposed to be for like a noise marine kind of thing, where it's essentially a big metal backpack with like a vinyl record and a record player like strapped to it. And it was super cool. I'm like, that's awesome. So impractical, but so like evocative. And I'm like, I think the fit of this, I could probably file this away. It would take a little bit of work, and I'd definitely have to do it ventilated if this is a resin mini, otherwise I'm gonna get popcorn lung. But I could definitely like file away that backpack and then glue that one in there instead. It's like a teeny tiny kit bash, but for an additional bit of personalization and customizability. But he kind of looks like he would be a character in like a fucking in like an Apex or like a League of Legends kind of character. The way that this character designing reminds me a bit of like the hip hop star Echo in League of Legends, that skin, or like some of the kind of character designs you get in Apex more than Cyberpunk 2077. I'm like, oh yeah. I love the fact that this is genuine reflection of street fashion on a character rather than just putting him in armor or just putting him in like jeans. Like they actually took some time to think about what this character would wear to be appropriate for a cyberpunk setting. That's really cool. So I was really, I'm looking forward to customizing and painting this mini as well. Ugh. Speaking of 3D printing, there is a company called Tabletop Extra, which, as I understand, they are in... So there are lots of people who do 3D printing Patreons, meaning that they design STL files, the files that you use to print them, and then sell them with a commercial license. So if you have a 3D printer, you have, the legal clearance to print and sell the minis that you buy from those designers. And as I understand, Tabletop Extra is one of those independent companies that has the rights to print a whole bunch of different designers. And they essentially were demoing their services, so they had a whole bunch of sculpts that were printed, and they were selling these boxes that have 3 minis in them. And I'm like, ooh, one of these is definitely for me. One of these is definitely for Tom, and then one of these, if my partner's interested, he might have. Sealed. Let me go open these. Gotta have tunes while adventuring for sure. Ooh. So we have a big QR code to this person's company, Tabletop Extra. So they are essentially a print on demand. I think you can give them STLs and they'll print them, but they have like a whole bunch of existing companies that they print from already. Papsicles is pretty famous for specifically doing cyberpunk style prints. So I might check out their website and go buy some of them that way. Because I don't have a 3D printer, so I'm not going to be able to print any of these. And it can be, if you don't know anybody who can print them for you, then what other way do you have than to either send the STL files off for companies that will print on demand, or find somewhere that is already printing that particular company's prints. So yeah. And we have these here. Hopefully they've made the journey back unscathed. Yeah, no, these have come out nice. Pretty comparable quality to these, actually. So we have this wheeler dealer. He's got a couple bits of fiber that need to be removed still on his goggles. But he's a kind of like, what are you buying? kind of guy. He's big coat with all his various wares inside. I quite like that design. It's quite nice. We have a very kind of like JRPG, like, is this a bell? Is this an hourglass staff that she has? But yeah, it definitely looks like a kind of like a JRPG MMO style character. I think Tom would quite like this one. Quite fun design. The staff is, I think, my favorite part. The sculpt of the staff is pretty cool. And then we have a little like owl, Dungeons and Dragons fantasy looking character. Very, very fun. Cute. It's like half the size. Well, not half the size, like 2/3 of the size of the lady. Her height with the sword. And in comparative in printing, they're pretty similar. You can tell that this is clearly done on a kind of like industrial printing scale rather than a personal printer, but you can tell that they're pretty comparable. The sculpts came out really clean and they look really interesting. They're nice. So I'll definitely be keeping this one for myself. And then I think I'll paint these and then give them to my friends as gifts, because I find that painting for other people is definitely a personal motivator. So I will definitely be using that as an opportunity to do some additional printing practice. So I'm gonna fit these. Ooh, bouncing around. Sorry. Fit these in here, so I can fit them in the box. There we go. Rather than them being loose on my desk, but they are quite nice designs. I quite like all of those. We also got a bit of Necromunda, the Rogue Dock and Gang Lookout. So these are the Forge World resin prints. Most of Warhammer like Games Workshop stuff is like hard plastic, injection molded hard plastic that works with the kind of like plastic cement, and then they have a whole bunch of like special bits that you can get entirely on the Forge World website. They are more expensive. This actually wasn't quite cheap to get. But I really like the sculpt of the dock. I like that her body type is a bit different from some of the other female sculpts that Necromunda have. And the way that she's sculpted actually separates the upper and lower torsos from each other. So I can actually do a bit of kit bashing with this, I guess. Although, considering how much it cost, do I want to kit bash it or do I just want to make it? They didn't have any of these in stock when the World Series tournament was in town, and they brought a bunch of Forge World stuff. Yeah. I wasn't able to go and find this at my local or the London flagship Games Workshop place, which does actually stock Forge World stuff, but wasn't stocking this. So when I did see it was there, I was like, this is expensive, but it's probably going to be more expensive if I have to go and pay shipping for it, right? So I'm just going to go get it and then kind of like decide what I want to go do with it at a later date. This is kind of like a get for the future. I don't know whether I'll necessarily build it like they do on the box. It's pretty cool. I quite like the build on the box, but you know, if we can experiment with the build of it, we can. And as I say, I have other noise marine parts. So this guy looks like he could be kind of like, he's clearly a radio guy, but I like the fact that he's a radio, but also has like DJ equipment. That would be a fun thing to kind of put together. So yeah. I quite like these duo. We'll see what we get with these two. Another kind of expensive buy, but was a fun limited edition get. Midara is a RPG board game in the same way that Kingdom Death Monster and Gloomhaven and Dark Souls the board game are. Midara is also one specifically inspired by JRPGs and following that kind of story, but also that kind of character design. And the main characters that you can get in the box have a bunch of casual outfit alts. So this is the alt of the, oversized sword hero, your Cloud Strife kind of guy, Zeke. I really like his kind of like punky streetwear, and also the fact that he still carries a gigantic sword. That's quite fun. Inside, it's just the one mini, which for, I think the 24 quid that I paid for this is actually a little steep. But if it's a limited print run thing, then I guess you're paying for the fact that it's limited edition. I quite like the fact that they sculpted this in a way where you're not tied to using the base. I am going to have to do a little bit of whittling away myself to kind of get these to sit flat, but it does mean that I get my choice of what to base it on, and I'm not forced to just use the base that they put on here, because I don't like that style of just really flat base. I was a bit concerned that I'd be stuck with that. But it comes with the kind of like character and equipment cards and an art card with his like lore on the back as well, talking about his background. But it's a neat sculpt. It's a neat sculpt. That kind of like, as I've said a handful of times, that kind of like urban fantasy style character design is something that you see a lot in video games, but you almost never ever see in miniature games. So when I find minis that actually hit that aesthetic, I'm like, I'm gonna go get that because I'm not gonna really find it anywhere else. There was, interestingly enough, it looks like Steve from Stranger Things if he was given an oversized sword and they're here for it. Yeah, you know, that kind of thing you don't see super often. There was like a kind of like rummage around in a parts bin kind of thing. Clearly, it's like these are all plastic molded en masse and then just sold for like £1 a pop. So each of these, this was £3 for these 3 guys, which considering that was £25 for one guy or £24 for one guy, paying just a single £1 for an entirely okay sculpt was like an interesting prospect. And it's clearly like a modern design. He's clearly inspired by like the dude with a top knot in 2077 who's one of your party members. I can tell that he's kind of inspired by that kind of character design. But I'm like, I might be able to use this for a kit bash. And then if I fucked it up, it was only £1, just no big deal. It's quite tall as well, actually. Kind of like Kingdom Death height. Because he's much, much taller than my other minis. Even if I kind of place them on top of each other, he's much taller. But this might be useful for something. In a similar fashion, we have this kind of gangster character. He's got the braces on the back, quite dapper looking, carrying a pistol. Slick back hair. Pretty standard, kind of adventurer type. And then we have more in the realms of this kind of height, but still a little taller. This lady who is in like armor, but it feels more like Mad Max, like roller derby armor than like high fantasy. And I quite like her hair. There's a lot of like flash on this that I would need to remove with a craft knife. There's a lot of the print quality of this was clearly quite cheap, so they didn't do any of the trimming. The spear that she has is too long for the base, so it's forced to bend. I don't think I would use this as standard. I would definitely pull this apart and use the bits and pieces and different things. I can remove her arm and use it as an alternate arm on something else. But I quite like her design. I definitely like her head and her hair. I definitely use that head in something else. But yeah. Just three really cheap minis for £1 each. Quite nice. So I'm being pinged. Nothing super important. TT Combat, which was talked about when Dave's mini Menagerie was kind of talking about it. I looked at the minis for Carnival and was like, ooh, do I want these? They're quite interesting. And then resolved like, I'd never really use them for anything. They don't really sit in the archetype of the other stuff that I own, and I don't know necessarily if I would want to play Carnival. But what they were selling was very cheap, but still designed for purpose, primer in a bunch of colors. I just bought the one in black. I have one in light gray that I've used, but this means I can do a little bit of zenithal highlighting by basing things in black and then spraying a little bit of the light gray on top. So yeah, I was looking for like a black primer that was like cheaper than the tenner, and I think I got this for about £7 and change. And I'm like, cool, great. And they were like, oh, you can buy 4 colors for 20. And I'm like, I only need the black, thank you. But yeah, solid. We'll definitely be using that. We also, for a board gaming thing, one of my favorite board games is Mysterium, to which I have the expansions for, and putting all the expansions plus the original pieces inside the box, and the original like vacuum molding in the box is not designed to hold the expansions, so it's just a big mess. So I bought one of these like foam core organizers, so I can I've not opened this yet. Let's push out, just pull the sleeve out. Oh no, just immediately tear it. It's fine though, all of this is going to go. So it's a bunch of foam core that I can snap out. plus instructions, thank God, to then build the various kind of like separation chambers for all the cards and bits and pieces like that. This specific company, FS, has them for so many different board games, very specifically board games with expansions. So you can just still use your original large box, but fit all those bits and pieces in, which is really clever, very space saving. So if you're the kind of person who's like board games with expansions and you're like, oh, every time I open this box, it's a nightmare of putting everything back, consider using those kind of like dividers. MDF dividers were really popular, but I think the foam is maybe a bit hard wearing. And then because I think I said earlier in the stream, I got my boyfriend plays Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I really wanted to get him a present. He does a lot of in-person D&D as well, and I was like, oh, are there any minis for in-person D&D that you don't have yet? And he's like, I've been collecting minis for like so long, I tend to use all the stuff that I have previously anew in other projects, so I don't really need any new minis. I'm like, well, do you have a guy who has everything? And I was like, oh, scenery and scatter terrain is actually a pretty big part of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and they have a whole bunch of scenery, but you know, additional ones so you can do different layouts is probably pretty cool. So MDF scenery for some additional like dumpsters and dividers and a van, I figured would be pretty neat. This is from Wall Cradle Scenics. And they do a wide variety of different ones. They actually have like a different like a Sanctum Sanctorum one, so like Doctor Strange's mansion. And it looked absolutely sick. It looked so cool, but it was like 5-6 separate sheets of MDF to put it together, and I looked at the price tag of it, and I knew I had like a That's So Raven vision of the future, and being like, if I threw down the money to go and buy that and then showed it to my partner, and he'd be like, why did you spend this much money? Please don't. So I was like, okay, we're gonna get the cheaper, still cool looking scenery, and that you can still put to practical use. And even though you have some scenery, having more is something that's not going to be useless to you. So I figured that would be a good gift. Since he couldn't make it, I could still get him something. And that's my haul. That was my haul. I bought a lot of stuff. I bought a lot of things. Some of these are definitely going to be on camera in future streams, because I really enjoyed the painting streams that we've done. And we're definitely going to be doing more in the future. I might have to do some like polls or whatever to resolve what we paint next. I have some incomplete projects that I want to finish. There is some. Are you guys interested, before I go into this, because we can just end the stream, but are you guys interested in some of the stuff that I finished painting recently? Because I finished painting a couple of new minis, and then there's some stuff that I am halfway through that I would like to properly finish. So if you're down for that, I can show you that before we wrap up today. They say as they continue to kind of clear their space of so many bits of plastic that they bought. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll show you. One of the other things that I bought was additional storage. I bought like one of these battle pack foam core mini boxes. I have a couple of them. See, I think that's really cool. The husband would love it. Also, Kill Me went through it. It was cheaper than €300. It wasn't that expensive, but I was still kind of like, oh, that's a lot. So it has 2 trays, large trays. I've been using this to now store all my finished minis. I don't think I finished this one on camera. I painted it on my own time. You saw me put it together on camera, and then I did some additional detailing and finished it. So this is the Cyborg mini that I painted a while ago. They sculpted on stream a while ago, and it's now finished. I need to base in matte black. That's actually black Sharpie to remove some gluing error. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Even though it's very specifically not carefully blended, the style of it actually ended up really cool. I'm really happy with this. Turned out great. And it's because I am always doing the most, and I love using neon paints. All the metals, all the like spikes are UV reactive, so all the spikes glow. Because of course they do. Of course, all the spikes glow. You have to do the most at all times. Just gonna carefully put this back in here. There you go, buddy. So this is going to be my finished box. Because all my other boxes are kind of like varying levels of incomplete units. A thing that I still want to paint. So I started it a little while ago. It was like this is a queer socializing thing and we're doing crafting. And I was like, I'll bring a mini and like do the base coats, and didn't get very far because they wanted to play board games rather than do craft. But this is one of the first kit bashes I ever did, of like taking this kind of like gambler character and replacing their head with like a crocodile skull. And I want to do the skull in gold, and then kind of just, you know, a red, black, and white kind of like croupier style color scheme for the rest. So I've done some base, very, very rudimentary base coating on it. And I actually did this in a room with very dull lighting. So I thought I had painted all of this in red, and it is actually brown. So I'm definitely going to have to kind of more carefully go over these bits and pieces and do them in much bolder colors. But yeah, I want to finish this one. This might be a valid target to finish on camera. I think I posted, I showed you the finished Gambit. So I've done like a bunch of pin lining on this. I was using like a dark purple ink. You can see on the back in particular that I've put a dark purple ink on like the belt of the trench coat and in the seams to kind of give him more of a cell shaded panel lined look. And in the boots as well, you can see in the boots that that's also panel lined. And then the energy, not only is that in fluorescence and then built up from like a dark red to a fluorescent pink, it's top coated in a duochrome, so it has that like slight gold reflect on it as well as it catches the light. I'm really, really happy with the effects paints I use for this. And his eyes also glow. His eyes are also in the fluorescent pink, so under UV light his eyes glow pink. It's very cool. Very, very happy with this. I recently constructed but have not painted yet the Storm from Marvel Crisis Protocol. She is supposed to be suspended by her lightning, but it makes the mini like a good third taller, and I was like, I can't store that. So I built the thing incorrectly and then used some green stuff to attach her to the base so she's at a more reasonable height. But I'm looking forward to painting that. She's really cool. She's a really powerful mini as well. Her and Gambit together are like big long range damage. She's gonna be a proper threat. I need to decide what color scheme. So I painted the Gambit in like the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 alternate colors. So I might have to do the same for the Storm as well. See what color schemes that Storm has. All right, almost done with the showing minis to you adventure. Makes grabby hands at Gambit. Man, I love Gambit. Used to drunk die my friend who's actually from the Bayou because he could do his Gambit impersonation. Oh my god, that's cute. This I haven't finished painting. You saw me start painting my the Necromunda Esches on camera, and they're not all done, but I have started finishing them up. So I have 4 of the 7. Yes, I have 4 of the 7 finished. So we have, none of them have proper names yet. They're just based on their like hair color / base color. So we have yellow. So what I've done is that I have done more to use like a pinky peach for the highlights across both the orange and the pink to unify them a bit more together and give a bit more of a cell shaded chunkiness. Everything has been washed in purple purple ink. The purple like accessories also have a bit of like a light cyan, that's the word, reflect to them, so you can see her gun as like a purple blue reflect. And then there's also cyan accents to kind of tie in and do like a, on the other side of the color wheel, counterpoint from all the orange. And that has been applied to everything that I've finished, so all of them have that kind of aspect. So we have orange. Remember orange here? Oh, I love how this side of the boot came out. You really get the depth of the kind of shape of the boot and how I highlighted that in the light in the peach, as well as kind of like build up the form on the bodysuit so it's very clearly pink and not purple. And then also made sure that her face visor has a little bit of the cyan in the little like eye slot there. Yeah. We have green. I love green. Green's great. I love her rose sword. So unnecessary. I think that's from Anvil Industries, like kit bash parts. But I was like, that's such a delightful weapon. I love that. So, and then, you know, went in to kind of like make sure the roses and vines were more well defined in the green. I really love how the suit turned out. The suit feels really crisp with the edge highlighting. And I made sure that she still has a white shirt, and you can tell that she has a white shirt, in addition to the kind of cyan buttons. And then her kind of like punk shoulder piece has the blue reflect paint on it as well. So it goes purple cyan. And she has a little sidearm in her boot. Yeah, she's really cool. And then we have our like disco sci-fi diva, purple. Was using some purple ink in addition to regular purple paint to kind of get the definition in her hair, so you can actually get the depth and texture. Her face is a little blurry. I kind of made a point of not painting the eyes on these because I was like, well, you know, these are all batch painted. Specific. I will sometimes paint the eyes on like singular miniatures for detail, but because these are a gang, I'm like, I'm gonna not paint the eyes on any of them, and then they'll at least be consistent and unified, and you're going to be seeing them at a distance where you're not going to be seeing the whites of their eyes anyway, so it's fine. Giving her like a proper silver cyber arm as well, and the kind of like detailing on her very, very sci-fi looking gun, the sci-fi rifle. So that has a mixture of the purple ink to make the purple parts really pop against the silver parts. Yeah, turned out really nice. I really like all of these. Initially, when I finished the stream, when I was painting these, I was like, I don't know if I like the job that I did. These feel bad, actually, or at least the kind of like magenta before I lightened it into pink, and the orange clashed horribly. I really didn't like how those sat with each other. I was like, oh man, I fucked these up. I spent so much time kit bashing these together to make them look cool, and then used a horrible paint job, and now I hate them. But now that they're actually in a unified color scheme with the highlighting in the peach and the cyan kind of like offsets, they've come together. I really like how they sit as a gang now. I think they sit really, really nicely together. And because these are all made of very disparate parts. So for example, the body of this is from Infinity. So this is like a metal mini that I've glued plastic arms to. And it feels so much more unified now that it's been, you know, fully sprayed and base coated and then painted in a unified style. You know, these are made from entirely different parts. These are made from super different parts as well. I think this body, this suit body is from like a fantasy football like style game. This is like supposed to be a vampire. Black Healer, I think specifically Black Healer was the sculpt that this was, and I switched the head out. And it looks really, they look, you know, part of the same world. And now that they've got the color scheme together, and they share some of the design aspects from each other using the kind of like Escher bits and pieces as like a design unifier. It worked really well. I'm really, really happy with these. So I have 3 more to go. Some of them, I've left like some of the trickier ones until last because I'd be like that. But I'm really, really happy with how these turned out. Anyway, I've been talking for a very long time. I think I need to go and give my voice a rest. So let's go and pass things over. Sorry, there we go. I'm going to pass things over to VTuber Tabletop, doing some Dungeons and Dragonsing. Let's go pass over to them so you can go and give them a warm welcome. What's going on in the near future? Next Thursday, I think I'll be streaming on Wednesday rather than Tuesday next week because I have another commitment on the Tuesday again. I might have to move my Tabletop Tuesday, my Top Deck Tuesdays to another day of the week. Good God. But on Thursday will be the final session of Pokemon Nuzlocke. We are finally going to finish. This is very do or die. We either beat the Elite Four or we eat shit. I'm very, very much looking forward to it. So please do show up on that Thursday and offer your support. And with that, I have been your androgynous android game show host from the future, Nathan Blades. This has been the Neoncaster Twitch channel, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good one. See you all soon. Bye-bye.